This story began with a strange kiss of a man and a girl. Sitting on the bed, they put each other in a hot embrace. "Why did you kiss me?" the girl whispered, to which, in response, a man squeezed her into a mattress and hung from above. "Didn't you use your strength so as not to be associated with the past, Letitia?" With a sly smile, the blonde handed out. "Please do not repeat it," the girl whispered bitterly, covering her eyes, and tears appeared from under the lush eyelashes. And then the man covered her mouth with his own. "I don't know how it happened," Letitia thought, feeling the taste of his kiss. "But in one thing I'm sure. I like how he hugs me tightly," the girl firmly decided, pressing her whole body to her chest. Now the story is carried away long before its decision, and in front of us is a completely different Letitia that froze from words. "Let's divorce. This is not a funny joke for the anniversary of the wedding," she answered, sharply setting up a cup of tea on a porcelain saucer. "I got a man whom I loved, really." In a calm tone, her husband, Astor Winchester, said, "She, unlike you, is an innocent, unrealistic woman." Astor continued, and from his words, Letitia clenched his hand into a fist. "How can you say that?" she cried out, jumping to her feet. "Do you want to use the name of your family again?" The husband sighed. "Certainly. How much money they invested in order to raise your business?" the girl continued, while the servants awkwardly watched a quarrel. "I paid with all the debts." Astor raised his voice. "What are you talking about?" Flight was amazed. "Do not pretend that you don't understand." The husband rubbed his head indifferently. "I returned the entire invested amount, although a little late," he finished, lowering his voice and looking into his wife's pale face. "Astor Winchester, you have always been like that," Letitia said in her thoughts, crushing her hand in a snow-white tablecloth. "I understood my guilt, as if it meant nothing." She continued all the same, watching how her husband carefully drinks tea. "Because of your late, my family lost everything." She finally expressed everything she thinks. "My father even went to extreme measures, as you can." At the mention of her father, her voice again broke into a desperate scream. "It doesn't matter in an aristocratic society if you have no money, but it is another matter if you lose your honor. My father went bankrupt when he could not return the invested funds in time, and, taking all the responsibility, committed suicide. The father invested in Astor because he was the husband of his only and warmly beloved daughter. Do you want to marry her again?" Suddenly, Letitia guessed, caught her husband by surprise, and he said in surprise, "What? I thought I did not know." Her voice hissed with boiling anger, and a second hand crushed the unfortunate tablecloth. "If not for her, you would not talk about divorce." The girl was poisonously continued, rearranging her opponent in her husband's arms. "Enough! I have no time to argue with you," Astor cut off with a wave of his hand. "Why not discuss monetary compensation?" "Stop talking about money!" Suddenly, Letitia shouted indignantly, which Astor definitely did not expect from her. "They will not return my father to me." With tears in her eyes, the girl continued, and in her soul already deciding that his meanness will reveal to everyone. But the next moment, Astor abruptly broke off, and Glesley gave Letitia a slap in the face, and she recoiled. "Even the late father-in-law would be shocked when you see you like that." Astor continued everything, erupting one cruel word after another. "I am already sick of your exits." From these words, Letitia touched the steamed cloak of his cheek, not feeling pain. "No one will contact you as a mistress if you are so emotional." Astor softened the tone, hiding his hands in his pockets. "I tell you, our marriage began to strangle me." He grimaced, waved his hand, as if driving away an annoying fly. "I lived with the feeling that I was haunted by a tax collector." From these words, Letitia turned pale, becoming a shadow of itself the same, and this miserable face brought me fury. And from these words, she dared to raise her tearful eyes to her husband. I felt the last scoundrel in the world. Astor closed his eyes, stretching his hand to his engagement ring. "So give me a divorce." Having pronounced with these words, he calmly laid a silver ring on the dining table. "I also want to be happy. To have a woman nearby, like everyone else. A woman nearby." He continued dreamily. Astor stumbled in half a word, slowly turning his back to his wife, as if not daring to look in her eyes. "And?" Flights repeated after him, as if arriving no longer here and not now, but in another place. I also want a child. Aster answered coldly, and his words sounded more painful for Letitia than a slap in the face. My child, who will look like me, Aster continued, considering his children's portrait on the wall. And you cannot have children. He finished and slowly left, leaving Letitia alone with his thoughts. And his engagement ring remained lonely, lying on the dining table, gleaming in the sunlight. The delicate sun rays lit up the garden. A light breeze fluttered the crown trees, and small mischievous birds chirped cheerfully. Under one arch, this wonderful garden, on garden swings, staying in deep thought, was Letitia. Without noticing it, she grabbed her stomach. Her thoughts were only about one thing. Child? How does he dare to tell me this? After all, the reason why I cannot have children is that you pushed me down the stairs when I was very small. Everything is fine, Aster. You did not do it intentionally. She calmly reassured him, baking her light blush. Yes, let me marry you and atone for the end of my days. Aster answered, glancing at her with tearful eyes. So you swore. He said that you would stay with me forever. Recalled Letitia Day by their Aster of the wedding. Lianka. So gently and loving, he called someone else's name and smiled when she touched his cheek. You are the only one for me. How can you do this to me? Letitia cried, returning to the real ones and covered her face with her hands. I did not know that you were here. Suddenly, the mother-in-law's voice came, and she saw how she descends along the steps in her husband's company. Mother! The girl's mother-in-law greeted a slightly trembling voice. Aster told you everything? She asked. Yes, but I can't get pregnant. Letitia was justified. Yes, I know. Mrs. Winchester sighed dismissively. The woman herself is to blame if she cannot take care of her body. And I'm glad that my son is breaking up with you. Go somewhere in another place. With a mocking smile, she advised her mother-in-law, to which her father-in-law and eyebrow did not take. Although I do not know where they will accept such a child as you. From these cruel words, Letitia felt herself drowning in the abyss. Dear, will you tell her something goodbye? Mrs. Winchester asked her husband, and he approached the girl. Letitia, child. He took her by the shoulders, and she felt uneasy from his rough grip. I know that you made every effort, but no matter how much the chick tried, he would not keep up with a stork. He finished with steel in his voice, and the girl was numb. I collected all your things and left at the entrance. Suddenly, the mother-in-law wedged between them and Mr. Winchester released Letitia. As the last service, I called the carriage. In the end, she threw the mother-in-law. I hope we will not meet anymore. Transport really expected the flying and gate of the estate, but this was not a carriage, but a simple cart without a coachman. As if only they waited until I signed the documents for divorce. The girl reasoned gloomily, examining the belongings dumped in a heap. But this is too little. Suddenly she realized her luggage. At least I came with a lot of things, and suddenly she was sharpened with her head with cold water from a bucket. And from fright, Letitia cried out, God, I'm not on purpose. A familiar, malevolent voice and a wet girl raised her head to the balcony. Sister, are you all right? Mockingly, Olivia Winchester, the younger sister of Aster. I did not think that someone was there. What to do? Surely you are cold. She could not restrain laughter and looked up at the parapet. I took care of your things, sister. Olivia continued the mockery, but the look for Letitia did not focus on this. This is a dress. The memory that remained for me from my grandmother. She hissed, not taking her eyes off the beautiful pink dress on Olivia. I don't understand what you are talking about. You must be beside yourself from shock. With a poisonous smile, she answered and turned away. I would like to spend you, but a little busy. In parting, Olivia waved a pen, moving away from the balcony, and added, I need to put things in order in the master's bedroom for the new guest. And Letitia froze from an unkind guess. Will my room be given to that woman? She thought, imagining how Aster shows her former house to her mistress. Wait, that's how it all ends? Letitia cried out, rushing after Olivia, but the servants blocked her path. In the end, in this house they treated me as a family? She asked her kneeling in front of closed doors. The radiant sun was flooded with the whitish light, as snow-white as marble. The walls of the Violet family house. Have you divorced Aster? The Dowager Senior Violet asked displeasedly, covering the scarlet lips with a fan of lemon color. Also on your wedding anniversary, the stepmother continued, glancing at her clenched and drooping stepdaughter. Sorry, all that Letitia could answer, with a tired and drooping voice. Her gaze was directed into the void. Did you not have enough irrevocable investments in your husband, and the fact that Graham went to extreme measures because of you? While you accused me of the fact that I became your stepmother, you decide to divorce? Senia raised her voice, slamming the fan. If not for you, Graham would have no reason to die. From these words, Letitia crushed a skirt. But the next words were more unbearable. Ah, yes. By the way, I heard your sister died of illness. It would be better for you to die at the same time. Letitia was numb. But the next moment, the stepmother's voice brought her into a breath. I went away, she said, piercing the stepdaughter with a cold look. What? But Letitia was confused, but Senia interrupted her, rising from the chair. Do you have no shame at all here? Get out right now, she hissed with poison instead of words, and poked Letitia by a fan. And don't even think to return. I lived such a stupid life until I lost the only person who was waiting for me. She remembered her father. Maybe it will be easier if I just jump into the river? Suddenly, she asked a question, being at the edge of the cliff. You are not alone. The familiar voice called out equally suddenly, and Letitia indifferently turned to its owner. But I will not look at it, Aster calmly stated, standing in front of her in the company of his new chosen one. Caution, do not slip. He carefully warned his mistress, offering his strong hand, and she accepted her. Thank you, Art. I will quickly talk to her and return. Lianka smiled, a girl with scarlet eyes and hair of lilac. As you wish, Lianka. Aster put her in delicate embrace, pulled her to him, and touched his lips to his forehead. Are you all right, Madame Letitia? Lianka was worried, approaching a surprised and confused girl. Today is a terribly cold wind. She noticed her mistress and carefully wrapped his flying with her purple shawl. If you do not mind, maybe we will go along the shore and talk? With a radiant, innocent smile, Aster's mistress suggested. There is something that I need to tell you, Madame Letitia. However, from such a proposal, Letitia pursed her lips. I hate. Letting said briefly and simply, with hatred, tearing her hand out of the hands of the culprit of all her troubles. The Lianka was bewildered in a bewilderedly dangling, looking at her thin, frozen fingers with an empty gaze. Madame Letitia! Finally, the word awakened from sleep, she said, looking up at the girl and came closer. I think you will be interested to know. Lianka surprisingly, strongly squeezed the forearm of Letitia. What happened before the death of your father? With a smile on the lips and poison in her voice, she whispered a flying in her ear. Now you look at me. The lover, with a very unkind, crafty smile and gaze, reached out. I suppose your late father was dear to you. Lianka's face suddenly brightened, and the smile became wider. Just look at your face. All that Letitia could think about is Lianka talking about her father? So Art beats you because of this? Lianka asked. But so fun, as if there was nothing terrible in her words. Relax and follow me. If he notice, then you will never hear this. She warned with a smile. And do not get too close. With a smile and squinting his eyes, added a Viano over his shoulder. I do not like the smell of stables. This woman is terrible, like a snake. Letitia, to trembling in her hand, squeezed her skirt. I remember how she seduced married men. Let's dwell here. Lianka decided, admiring the view of the river from the edge of the cliff, while Letitia was approaching. It's so cold here. She turned to Letitia with that former crafty smile and a predatory cold look. However, the next moment, Letitia fiercely and unexpectedly spread the opponent with a whip, sonorous slap in the face. This is for an insult to my father. Through an angry grin, she hissed, expressing nothing on her face except the charity to Lianka. And she, detached and silently, put her palm to her cheek, reddening from the blow, and stared in the emergency for the void. Since the courtesy's finished, Slavica said, let's start with what you call a conversation. The loud laughter pierced the overhanging silence. God, you are so funny, Madame Letitia, Lianka said with sympathy. Do you know what those people who resort to extreme measures should do before death? Lianka asked a question. We are talking about revising the will. Before their death, people want to fix their deep intentions. She continued. Of course not. Sluming her eyes slicily and cherished the impudent smirk, the vine answered. Without looking away from Letitia, your father tried to change his last will. To leave you all the state of the Violet family. She continued coldly. The question is, what will happen if before his death, the deceased could not do this? Lianka asked with mockery. Who benefits from this most? Like a thunder among a clear sky, a question was raised. And just as suddenly, one name surfaced. The eyes of Letitia widened, and her amazed face was covered with a cold, sticky ladder. Xenia! It flashed through her head. Xenia. It was from the lower aristocracy, having distant common roots with the Violet family. Recalled Letitia, she stayed in a poor position, her husband died of illness, and she had nowhere to go with her little son. At the same time, my diluted father regretted her and decided to marry a second time. Similarly, remembered Letitia, if my father revised the will, as Lianka says, she would not be able to occupy the position of the mistress of the house, Violet. This does not make you think about whether your father really resorted to extreme measures? Stepping to Letica, asked Lianka. And did the ex-spouse Xenia really die from the disease? With a chilling smile, Miss Snowser asked, Do not believe, check for yourself. The city in which Xenia lived was small, so there will be one or two people who know her. Why are you telling me this? Let the question dare to the question, while the cool wind teased the green branches. Firstly, I hate Xenia. She tried to seduce Aster, Lianka admitted, acquiring herself by the elbow. What does it all mean? Flight did not believe, staggered. This is true, Lianka answered calmly, breaking her hands. He did not look at her, but she still was in a lip, and once even sovereign him and began to take off her clothes. Well, the second reason, Lianka handed out, quickly and suddenly, getting close to the dumbfounded Letitia. And then she heard a champing sound, and then her own heart was beating in her ears. And she felt acute pain. That I feel sorry for you. With a vile smile, she finished the vine, clutching in her hand a dagger sticking out of the chest. A shocked girl in brawl, and somehow incorrectly looked at the blade, and his hand holding his hand. And then she led her back. It would be stupid if you died like that, without knowing anything, Lianka said, before pushing Letitia from the cliff. Goodbye, pass on hello to your late father. With a satisfied smile, a farewell shouted to the girl, and Letitia put a downhill in her cold embrace. But despite all the horror, she could only think about pain. My stupidity broke my heart, she thought humbly, smoothly, and inevitably dropping to the bottom lower and lower. For all of them, I sacrificed something valuable. She remembered her father's smile. My father, my family, even himself. Letitia closed her eyes, already taking the inevitable. But the next moment she felt the touch of someone's hands. Someone grabbed her face with his palms, carefully pulled him to him, and opening the cold mouth with his tongue, breathed life into her. Who? She tried to ask, but in response she heard a clear one. If you do not want to croak forever like a crow, do not open your mouth. And Letitia heeded these words. Yes, like that. The stranger said and kissed her again, giving air. Good girl. And suddenly everything was dispelled, like a nightmare, who in the end became pleasant dreams, and Letitia discovered herself in bed. This. Where am I? Such was her first thought, while the girl herself was confusedly examined by an unfamiliar ceiling. It seems that my wound was healed, she concluded, with difficulty rising from the bed and feeling the bandaged chest with her hand. You woke up. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from the side, and Letitia turned to her sudden savior. So annoyed to hug your shaking body every night, a stately blonde said with a grin, crossing his hands on his chest. You! Flights began timidly, but hesitated, equally timidly considering the man, and part-time the owner of this room. Are you not His Highness Prince Zionian, the miracle of the Westeros Empire? Nevertheless, she asked, remembering the familiar face of the blonde. Yes, right. Sunian once answered dryly and grimaced slightly, as if to hear his own title, and his name was not a joy. Why did you save me? The girl was voiced by the begging question. I am the first to ask questions here. Gionian cut off. You are the only legitimate child of Count Violet and Bride Marquis Winchester. From afar, the prince began an interrogation. Then why did you swim with a river with a knife in your chest? He finished, and Letitia shamefully looked down. She smelled a nightshirt, hiding the bandaged breasts, let it, and realizing that it was already too late to hide the wound. I stopped the bleeding, but do not grind. With these words, Zionian suddenly hung over an amazed girl. Stop! Letitia prayed helplessly, when the prince, without the ceremony, fell with his lips to her wound on her chest. My God, Mr. Zion! Suddenly, a dark-haired man with a monocle rushing into the room shouted into the room. The patient recently woke up, and you already bother her? The adultering adjutant, Langaro Mak Shang, asked displeasedly. Do you know who really worries here? Zion quipped, while his adjutant sincerely apologized to the embarrassed girl. I apologize, lady. He is quite good. Just a little on his mind. You must be surprised when you woke up. We are located on the passenger ship of the Westeros Empire. And as if in confirmation, Letitia felt the pitching and creak of the mast. Westeros. The Holy Empire west of Northland, where according to legends, the gods lived to the very end. Perhaps, for this reason, special people with the power of God were sometimes born in an imperial family. These were called Salt. Do not worry, we are not heading to the western continent. He reassured Langaro. What Letitia asked. What happened? Mr. Zion and I visited Northland and just examined the surroundings when we saw you, floating along the river. You were between life and death for almost a week. Langaro finished the story, involuntarily recalling the bloodied dagger. It turns out the salt heal people in this way? The girl suggested what Langaro answered awkwardly. Something like that, lady. Spending time very closely, small wounds are healed quickly, but your case was heavy. Sorry to confuse you. Have you told my family that I am alive? Letius asked, what Langaro replied that her funeral had already taken place. Funeral? She horrified, and the adjutant continued. Unfortunately, after the death of your father, you did not recover with depression, and they committed suicide, jumping into the river in front of the stepmother. He finished Langaro to tell the fiction of a shocked girl. She jumped into the river, in the eyes of the stepmother. A trembling voice was repeated by Letitia, crushing a silk sheet from a bitter resentment. But Mr. Zion said that you were wounded by a dagger. The adjutant reminded, and the girl looked at the waiting prince. Did your stepmother hurt you? He expressed his guess with his hands crossed, looking down at his guest from top to bottom. Of course, not a stepmother. She is the last witness. Suddenly, Langaro wedged in, to which Zion answered, Did I ask you? This is not Xenia. Letitia answered quietly, carefully touching the wound from the dagger through tight bandages on her chest. My husband's mistress, Lianka Snowizer, hurt me, the girl admitted, representing her in Aster's passionate embrace. Is this a girl with scarlet eyes? Langaro said thoughtfully. Right. Do you know her? The Letitia referred to what was refused. No, but my messenger saw her. He said that she was grief at your funeral. From these words, Letitia maliciously bit her lips. So, are you going to return to your husband? The prince's question sobered up the girl and found it by surprise, which was why she changed in her face. No, my husband, most likely also involved in this. She answered again, tormenting the sheet, and in her thoughts, plucking resentment and anger. Why should I die? These doves deserve death, and I will make them pay no matter what. Your gaze has changed. With a satisfied smile, Zion noted, thoughtfully rubbing his chin with his hand. After your words, I want to make you an offer, he said, and Letitia asked warily. Offer? I will teach you perfect revenge. Zionian was explained, and from the words heard, the fial eyes of Letitia were rounded. It will be so cunning that your enemies themselves will wish to death. With a cunning smile, the prince assured, holding out his hand to her. If you do, as I say, you will receive perfect revenge. He continued, and Flathia lurked his breath. Wealth, honor, and even your selected life. I give a guarantee that all this will return to you. The prince promised the girl. But this, I'm sure, has the price that I have to pay? Asked Letitia, a reasonable question, without raising her eyes. Price? Certainly, Prince Zionian answered with a grin, exposing the snow-white teeth, and gave the girl a satisfied look. The eternal death of Letitia Violet. He said, and Letitia was numb with his voice, which was like the ringing of a funeral bell. This is the price that I want. He finished Zionian, holding out his hand, as if already wanting to accept the payable. If something you want to do? Letitia asked, hiding her eyes from him, and ran her hand over the tight bandages. And I like your quick wits. The prince grinned, sitting down on the bed, and the mattress gritted softly. In Northland, there is a criminal who killed a person dear to me, he admitted, which sincerely surprised Letitia. To find it, I need someone who is familiar with the local society and can get the information necessary for me. And this role will belong to you. I will give you a new position and a new life. Zionian turned to the girl. Using power, I will change your face to someone else's, he said, gently touching the cheek of Letitia with the back of his hand. So those who betrayed you will not be able to recognize you, Zion promised. With a loaded tone, and Letitia remembered Aster. Will you really change my face? Is it possible? Not completely believing in what she heard, she asked carefully. Of course, otherwise not to be an omnipotent straw. With a bright smile, Zionian answered, as if answering an incredulous child. Why are you doing this for me? Letitia did not calm down, and from her question, the prince's face turned into an impassive mask. After all, your highness and I are completely alien, she timidly continued, not noticing how Zion again touched her cheek. Then we were able to exchange only a few words. Therefore, we can hardly exchange promises. Flight objected. Hardly? Zionian repeated, gently removing her chestnut curl by the pink ear, and stopped, as if admiring him. I remember then I gave you one important advice. He continued, taking in his hand a thin handle of Letitia, with its wedding ring. Run away from Aster Winchester right now. With a sly smile, Zionian reminded and bit the ring on her ring finger. And Letitia remembered. She returned to the Dincenti's estate, on the frosty winter day of his wedding with Aster. Have you seen it? She whispered one of the gentlemen invited to the wedding, addressing her gallant interlocutor. Sewell came from Westeros as a guest. The intriguing news spread among the guests and the nobles. And even more than that, Sewell was accompanied by the second crown prince, Northland Calix, with whom he was a solitude and led a conversation. They say that this soul was born for the first time in 300 years. One of the guests said, Neg has the power to heal people. I echoed the other. I did not expect to see him here personally. The third spoke out. These words reached Letitia, and she turned to the culprit of the gossip. This man, Zionian Saul Mayer Summerhurst, she reasoned, examining the prince that she was bored in her hand with a glass. Know that all this is thanks to me. Suddenly, Mrs. Winchester said, waved by a fan, which distracted Letitia from the guest. Since Queen Anna is my friend, we have the honor to accept such a guest. With a satisfied smile, the mother-in-law explained. She already wanted to order the cook to cook food in the Western style, but Olivia intervened. Mother, you are again for your own. This is so unexpected that you still need to prepare. She objected. I think he will like it too. Mother stood on her own. This matchmaker crosses all the boundaries. Suddenly she changed her subject and, hiding her face behind the fan, looked piercingly at the daughter-in-law. Could he not show more attention to his daughter's wedding? She was indignant, examining her son with drooping Letitia. Mother, enough. Aster and her father stood in a calm tone, which did not appear at the wedding of his daughter. Good, good, let it be your way. Mrs. Winchester surrendered, sighing heavily, and folded the fan with a click. When a woman comes to the house, the son immediately becomes a stranger. Finally, she shortened Letitia, and she guiltily looked down. Mother, why not say a congratulatory speech to our Western guest? Suddenly wedged with the idea of Olivia. If the Saul himself speaks, I'm afraid guests will not be able to say anything else, and they will only be shut up. This is a wonderful idea. Mrs. Winchester praised her daughter, in the blink of an eye inspired by her cunning idea. Then I'll go talk to him. Olivia shone with joy, and Mother let her go with a smile. Okay, go. Aster, look like a sister, shows an influence instead of a daughter-in-law. The mother-in-law switched to her son while Olivia was giving away. Letitia, look and study. She did not deprive the bride with reproaches, and she again lowered her eyes, clutching a wedding bouquet in her hands. However, very soon, Olivia hastily returned with a dissatisfied look, angrily attacking heels and minting a step. Sewell said that he would only listen to the main perpetrators of the celebration. She said on the go, "How arrogant." Asked her, "Why don't you go there personally?" With light awkwardness, Mrs. Winchester turned to her son. "I don't understand why I should do this." Astor grumbled displeasedly, which surprised the flying nearby. "If Olivia could not, then I." She indulged in internal torment, unconsciously tormenting her bouquet in her hands. "Let's do it, Astor. Let's go together and ask to make a speech." With a smile, she turned to her future husband. "Are you serious?" Astor answered her. "I think this would increase the reputation of the Winchester house." With the previous smile, Letitia insisted, "If you want it so." Nevertheless, Astor surrendered, which again surprised the bride, but also forced her to shine with joy. "Who is this here?" With curiosity, the second crown prince Calix asked, addressing the newlyweds who approached. And these are the main characters of today's holiday. He recognized the newlyweds and gave them a radiant smile. Astor Winchester and Letitia Violet welcomed the great salt and His Highness of the Prince. The bride and groom bowed. "Have you come again to ask for a congratulatory speech?" Instead of Prince Calix, the cold voice of Sewell answered instead of Prince. "Zionian." The prince of his companion pulled embarrassedly. "What, did I say something wrong?" The one objected calmly. "If we hear speech from the great salt." Astor began to explain, but already without respectful tone and with a prickly look. Nevertheless, his behavior and words only have amused the great Zionian, which is why his thin lips sparkled in a grin. "Well, well, are you serious?" he mockingly asked, leaving a glass with a bubble champagne on the armrest of the sofa. "I did not even really remember your names," Zionian said, which confused Letitia, but Astor noticeably tensed. "Are you sure that my speech will bring you good luck?" Zionian continued mockery and smiled just as mockingly to the newlyweds. "I have no luck for you. Go back," Prince Zion commanded, but for Astor his words were like a spit in the face. Silence hung over all four persons. For two of them, she was awkward, and for two other, tense. "I think you came to the wrong place." Through the grin, Astor muttered, creaking with his teeth restrained. "I made a mistake." He threw and turned around, headed away. "Astor!" He called out his Letitia, rushing after him. She wanted to stop the groom, taking her hand. But Astor angrily dismissed her hand, as if she was a viper. "I already told you," he hissed with a cold steel in his voice, sighing his eyes that would soon become his wife. And after that, he simply left, leaving Letitia alone and confusion to watch him and hear his shoes. "I did not think that I would get something that did not work out with Olivia." She began to reproach herself, covering her eyes. He left his wife only because he lost his temper. Meanwhile, Zion curled up, for which Calix pulled him again. "I'm sorry. It is already an honor for us to accept you as a guest." Letitia appreciated respectfully, fulfilling the curtsy. "Sorry to put you in an uncomfortable position with a request to make a congratulatory speech." She continued, "Lady Violet, you should not apologize on such a significant day." With an embarrassed smile, Prince Calix reassured her, "Please enjoy the evening." In parting, Letitia wished guests from the west, still in a bow. However, when the girl had already set out to retire, Prince Zionian suddenly stopped her. "Wait!" he ordered, raising his hand. "For you, I have a congratulatory wish." With a cunning smile, he held out, propping his chin with his fist. "Run!" This is what Prince Zionian wished, and Letitia sincerely dumbfounded, not understanding the reason for such a wish. "What?" She exhaled a question, feeling a cold drop of sweat rolling across her face. "Run! What does it mean?" "To express yourself literally, run away from this fool," Zionian explained, touching her naivety and confusion. "With this rat you will never be happy," he warned, pointing towards the Winchesters that they stood apart. From these seemingly cruel and unfair speeches, Letitia hardly swallowed a viscous lump in the throat. "I'll go," she quietly told the Prince Zionian, bowing to him respectfully and leaving him on it. "Here is a fool." Prince Zion dug in disappointedly, looking after the retreating Letitia, and raised himself annoyingly in the sofa. "Then you did not listen to my advice." The voice of Zion returned Letitia to the present, in which he removed her ring with his teeth. "Well, probably you loved this fool so much," the prince suggested. thoughtfully twisting in his hand her engagement ring. And this is how he repaid you for your love. In the appendage to the words, Zionian threw the ring on the floor and then rolled away. This is the same as pouring water into a bottomless pan. He continued, hinting at the bandages and wound under them. Can you really be able to carry out my revenge? Finally, Flithia dared to speak again, and Zion turned slightly to her. Yes. He gave his answer, with a rare, sincere smile on his calm face, and Letitia squeezed a sheet in his hands with excitement. Then, Your Highness, I accept your proposal, Violet Letitia strongly stated, looking directly into his eyes. The deal is concluded. Zionian Saul Mayor Summerhurst confirmed, rising from the girl's bed and headed for his former place. Now a kiss of my boot. Suddenly he declared, sitting on a chair and crossing his hands on his chest, threw his foot on his leg. What? Either was amazed or Letitia was indignant at the bite in bed, which slightly surprised Zion, but he did not give a look. However, Adjutant Langaro came to the aid of the girl. In our sacred empire, Westeros, he began with a smile. There is a custom to kiss the legs to members of the imperial family as a sign of the oath of unchanged devotion. The adjutant explained, this means the submission of your life to another person. He finished Langaro lecture, and Letitia realized that she had heard about it. The founder of the imperial dynasty Westeros was a demigod. She recalled, imagining the image of that demigod. He used his sacred power in order to get a special oath from his subjects, and since then it has become a tradition. As soon as you become mine, you can no longer be the Letitia Violet. Continued for the adjutant Zionian. This is good news, Letitia agreed, throwing off her sheet and carefully stood out of bed on the weakened legs. A stupid woman who suffered all the bullying until her husband's mistress killed her, she thought to herself, stepping shaking. A stupid woman who gave everything to the deceiver to her husband, she thought to herself, kneeling in front of Prince Zionian, an ungrateful daughter who destroyed her father. She thought to herself, bringing her mouth to a boot, polished to a shine. A great opportunity to erase all this. She decided to herself, kissing the prince's boot and dutifully falling to him with a brow. You said that you will realize my revenge. Please keep your promise. With a grateful smile, Letitia prayed. Letitia Violet Winchester, Zionian said, carefully clasping her face with his hands and hanging over a desperate girl. From now on, and until the end of my days, you will serve me. He brought his hand to her face on the back of which the symbol shone. Are you worried? Zion asked with a slight smile, while the warm, magical light from his palm was all filtered. A little, yes, Letting admitted, closing her eyes from the light and grimacing before the unknown, as if preparing for a blow. I'm not afraid that something is wrong with my face. Just... She timidly stumbled, crushing the hem of a nightshirt in her hand. So you are worried about the future? Zionian suggested, gently touching his hands to the face of Letitia. Will I be able to fulfill what your highness will order? She answered the question with a question, and Zionian thought, get rid of these thoughts. He ordered, taking Letitia by his chin and gently stroked his lips that was implanting blood with his thumb. Unlike a greedy rat that received too much, you are scared, he whispered, stroking her crown of coffee hair. Even if you fail, I will support you, he promised, breathing with her with one air so close to each other. I will not say that I do not trust you, but do not underestimate yourself. Fine? And with these words, Zion pulled away from the girl. Now Letitia Violet has gone forever, he solemnly declared with a satisfied smile, looking around the work done. From today, you are Countess Kant, Anaros Victoire, and you will live like her, Zionian said, admiring the new Letitia. In this form, even your parents would not recognize you. Zion spoke, while Anaros was now considering himself in the mirror. The same black hair as an aster. She noticed in her thoughts, running her hand along the long black with curls black. Facial features became sharper, and the eyes are more pronounced and bright. Has he really changed me so much, only touching me? It seems to me that it turned out well, right? Zionian turned to his adjutant, that all this time he humbly watched them. You look like a beauty from a famous picture, lady. Langaro smiled immediately, emphasizing the compliment with applause. Well, then go and bring the matter to the end, Zion commanded, hinting at the door, and the adjutant obeyed. Please follow me. Langaro went to the door leading to the bathroom, and Anaros followed him, but suddenly stopped and turned to the prince. Your Highness, thank you. The girl of her benefactor thanked and worshipped him gratefully. There is no need for gratitude. In a calm tone, Zionian assured, which surprised Anaros, and she raised her eyes to him. I only need your usefulness, he explained, walking towards the girl to meet, and ran his hand on the desk. Try not to betray me, Letitia. He reminded her of the former native name and took a black strand from her alien face. I did not know that you were familiar with His Highness. Langaro spoke out, carefully wiping Anaros with a velvet towel. We were not too close. She supported the conversation, while the adjutant set about her long hair, smoothing them with his hand. Perhaps now that you are in the same boat, you can no longer be called strangers. He noticed Langaro, ending his work. Here, let's put it on. With a smile, he suggested, trying on Ana Rosa a beautiful sapphire necklace to the swan neck. So, now I will tell you what you need to do. The adjutant got out, stepping back a step back and folding his hand behind his back. From this moment, you are the rising star of the secular society of County Kant, and you will live as their countess, Anaros Victuer. Therefore, throughout the next year, you will receive an appropriate education in the county of Kant. Then I go to the county of Kant? Reasonably suggested Anaros. Yes, sure. The adjutant confirmed. You will have to find out the culture, emphasis, and attitude in women's society from the first lips. He continued, and the girl remembered that the county of Kant is a country where any woman can take the position of the countess, if she has enough ability. This is a custom that is completely contrary to Northland, where women cannot freely transmit titles by inheritance. It is nice to become part of the county, which I always envied. Anaros thought, but then squeezed the forearm with excitement. I have never been to Kant's county, she admitted excitedly, and never left the limits of Northland. Is it nothing? In Kant, they speak the official language of the continent, and you speak this language at the proper level. Calm off, Langaro. But the county of Kant has its own emphasis. The girl objected. Don't worry, the adjutant assured, proudly aching. Let the year this time is short, but we will make every effort to your support. He swore, poked his fist in his chest. Another personality, altered appearance, and strong support. Anaros thought, with light sadness, looking down, I will repay His Highness for everything that he gave me. She firmly decided to herself, clenching her hand into a fist and pressing her to her chest. Will the wound bleed again? Langaro was worried, but the girl reassured him. I suppose this is from a long stay in the bath. Just in case, it is better to go to His Highness, the adjutant advised, looking guiltily at his ward. Not worth it. Everything is in order. Ana Rosa was embarrassed, covered in a blush. Do not be shy. Langaro smiled awkwardly to her. Let him be born with a tendency to cause inconvenience, but if it is better to know him, and you will understand that he is a light person. What do you mean? Anaros asked. I do not understand the meaning of the last word, to which Langaro smiled at her. This means that you do not need to try to please or like it. The only thing that excites him is benefit. He does not belong to people based on personal feelings, so he is not worried about what others think. Langaro's words accompanied Anaros all the way to the chambers of Prince Zionian. How easy is he, she thought. The girl stopped in front of a heavy door, but she did not have time to knock on her as the door with a creak came into motion. What's happened? In a calm tone, Prince Zionian asked, standing in the doorway and leaning on the door. My wound is bleeding again. Anaros answered, unlocked in embarrassment and timidity in front of the prince in an open shirt. I did not want to bother you, Your Highness, but Mr. Langaro said to come. She was explained, while Zion listened silently. Come. He answered briefly and simply, moving away from the door, in order to politely give way to the girl's way into his chambers. Then he ordered Anaros to lie down on his bed, and sank in front of her on his knee. He began healing. He again brought his hand to her chest, and again a warm, soft light shone from his palm, which gave her warmth and peace. Why does she heal for so long? She asked, feeling fatigue. There was something else on the knife. Zion answered her, removing his hand. But I'll say for sure, This is not from a lack of my abilities, he assured, covering his eyes, as if feeling this invisible obstacle. Thank you, I'm better already. Thank you, Your Highness. Anaros thanked him, covering the wound with her hand. This is the duty of the owner to take care of his horse, Zion said, and affectionately stroked the amazed Anaros on the head. Although it looks like how they stroke a dog on the head, the girl was embarrassed in her thoughts, invariably lowered her eyes. But how long no one is affection for me? She admitted to herself, recalling herself and affection of Aster. Do you still have regrets from a past life? Suddenly, Sionian asked, which caught the girl by surprise. I left it not because I so wanted. They stole and trampled it all. Anaros answered, turning to the prince. How did you get involved in this? He asked, propping his chin with his hand. You do not look like the one that will endure all the insults. Maybe because it seemed to me easy, the girl admitted, clutching her palms in the castle from memories and excitement. I have a question. Zionian curled, interrupting the hanging silence, and touched the Anaros's hand with his index finger. Why are women in Northland so attached to husbands? I heard that in ancient times, the wives were buried alive after the dead husband. Now everything is not so bad. But this is still a rather conservative country, honestly answered Anaros. So much that your husband with honor can be adulterers? The question continued. Zion and the girl froze as from a slap in the face. The illegitimate connections of men, although not in honor, are not considered shameful, she admitted, shyly looking down. Until this does not question the position of the spouse or inheritance line, this is accepted. What about a woman? Zion asked the following question that the girl was confused. What? She asked. What will happen if the spouse is incorrect? Zion explained his question, and with crafty curiosity bowed his head to one side. If a married woman makes adultery, she is sent to her parental house. Anaros answered, not raising her eyes. And instead of the separation of property, she must pay her husband compensation, and her children from the lover are losing their rights to inheritance. It seems that high standards here are only for women. Printing, but also impassively concluded by Prince Zionian. Your Highness, why are you asking? Anaros now asked, sincerely, not knowing what the answer could be. Because, among other things, Prince Zionian began from afar, smoothly sneaking up the bed closer. I want to do this. He finished with an answer, hanging over the amazed Anaros, which immediately froze under him. I heard now? She thought, while her gaze froze on a grinning Zion, and her cheeks burst into a light blush. You were kicked out before you committed marital treason. With these words, Zion gently took a naughty curl from her face. And you will not have to pay compensation, because you are dead. He spoke, leaning closely at her face and looking into her eyes. You have no children to deprive their inheritance, he whispered, stroking her waist, and Anaros hugged him back. Since it is a novel, then with someone who is worse than your ex-husband. Zion exhaled in her neck and fell to her lips. This is not progress, but regression, he said quietly, suddenly pulling the girl to him and putting in his arms, he put it on his knees. In this sense, I do not think that I have an opponent. What do you think? He asked slyly, looking at her from the bottom up. That's just the answer was hot tears that suddenly broke from the eyes of Anaros and rushing off her face, did not fall. My utility meant this? The former Letitia Violet asked in a trembling voice, trembling herself with his whole body in his hands. I'm used to what is treated as a tool. For the hard drives I was a puppet. For Aster, a dummy wife. But now I was born again and promised not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Yes, only the second chance gave me the same fate. Excuse me, I better return to my room, Letitia said quietly, moving away from the prince's wide chest. She left his chambers too hastily, leaving Zionian only to look after her and listen to the removable cocoon of her steps. Letitia overcame the corridor rapidly, almost running past the puzzled Langaro, which noticed the girl's behavior. Do you need to mock her like that? From the threshold of the chambers, he turned to his master, experiencing sympathy for the girl. Please be softer with her, the adjutant asked. It was she who ran away without listening to me. Zionian objected in his manner. Who makes an offer to pretend to be lovers? He reproached Langaro on the tactlessness of his master, and there was nothing for. Since I came, then figure out the clothes. Zion dismissed. You have not forgotten that I am the son of the Prime Minister? Langaro reminded. If you have not forgotten who I am, now shut up. Grounded Zion. Yes, you are not just a prince. You, Soul. The adjutant nodded with a grin. In the meantime, he took up his master's open shirt. Zionian himself thoughtfully looked through the open door to the corridor. If this really worries you, why don't you visit her yourself? With an understanding smile, Langaro suggested. Then your plan will not be broken. Adjutant added, while Letitia was already surrendering to oblivious sleep in his chambers. But her dream was clearly restless, because under a thin sheet, the girl was covered with a cold later. Letitia, here! Someone in a nightmare called a voice, and the girl found herself on the banks of the river, under the full moon and night sky. Running is pointless. It came back, and Letitia turned around, and there she was waiting for her Lianka, following her with a dagger. Do you want to feel easy? She asked. But instead of scarlet eyes, darkness looked at Letitia, and this darkness smiled. And the next moment, someone's hand emerged from the thickness of the water, which grabbed the Letika's leg with a cold grip. But the girl only managed to cry out with fright, and at that very moment, she fell helplessly to her face in ice water. This is all you can? How did such a tumor hit our house? Familiar voices whispered, and Letica did not hold away tears. If you were not. In agony, her parents said that they pulled their hands from dark water to her. It would be better for everyone. Help! Letitia screamed, rushing from the ghosts away, but they continued to pull their long, monstrous hands to her. And suddenly, someone's familiar, strong hand grabbed her hand by her hand and jerked the girl out of the clutches of monsters and the dead. Aster? Flight said incorrectly, looking at her ex-husband from the bottom up, and he strictly looked at her in response. Please help, flying, marking frantically from horror, before the dead, forgetting all the bad things that this man committed with her. Letitia Violet. Aster spoke not with his own, but in the voice of that monster, and released the girl's hand from his own. And the next moment, Letitia felt an acute pain that pierced her breasts. After all, the monster in the guise of a vine overtook her, and then Aster leaned toward her face with a shock, and with a smile pronounced her mouth. Nobody will help you. And the nightmare finally ended with her own cry. Jumping in bed, Letitia grabbed her hands by the wound, breathing heavily. Only realizing that it was only a nightmare, she left her chambers, deciding to walk to the living room where the bar was. I will not endure it with a right mind, she decided to herself, sipping the first, attracted eye, a bottle of wine. What are you doing? Suddenly, Zionian's displeased voice rang out behind him, which caught the Letitia by surprise. Ka! The Letitia caught with red-handed, choked with expensive wine, and vividly settled the bottle in place. I look, you are a garada to drink when you have an unhealed wound. Zion reproached the girl, taking the bottle from her and from Sin away. The pain in the chest was so severe that I could not fall asleep. Letitia lied, not daring to look the prince in the eye. You followed to come to me? In your opinion, why are there no painkillers here? Zion asked, returning the wine to the bar regiment. All that the Letitia was able to say, guessing what the prince could lead to, and therefore she backed away timidly. But Zionian immediately overtook her, and did not ceremony turn the edge of the nightshirt on her, exposing the bandages that were reddened with blood. This is what happens if you drink alcohol. The prince dagged annoyingly, examining the blindfold scarlet with blood with a critical look. And also, without ceremony, and not asking for permission from anyone, he silently brought his open palm to his chest. And as last time, a magic symbol broke out on its back, and a warm light shone from the prince's hand. This light gave peace, driving away his chest pain and closing his eyes. Letitia barely touched the prince's hand. I am sure you are upset through my fault, she said guiltily, when the light faded and Zion removed her hand from her. Thank you. However, Zionian was in no hurry to answer. He silently looked at the girl, and in the twilight of the room, his eyes flickered with silver. Upset? He asked, finally casting a voice, and the Letitia squeezed from him, shamefully closing his eyes and bowing his head. This is not the right word, the prince continued, grunting disappointedly, and fell tiredly onto the sofa. Letitia timidly came closer to him, Sit down. Briefly, Zionian commanded the girl, but not imperious, but in a simple way, which gave the flying a grain of courage in front of him. We still have an unfinished story. With the previous smile, Zion recalled, and the girl was uncertainly approached. However, when Letitia tried to fulfill the will of the prince, weakness and a slight dizziness suddenly attacked her. Or are you so drunk that you can't move? Zionian noted the ailment of the interlocutor and grimaced, dagged with displeasure. I'm sorry, Letitia responded quietly, inside burning with shame and not lifting her eyes on the prince, clasped her hands helplessly. That's why I do not know how to joke. Zionian sighed tiredly, at which the girl looked at him incomprehensibly. Joke? She asked, and Zion reminded her. I suggested starting a novel because it is a means of achieving your revenge. Even if you return after a year of preparation in Kant, Northland is a country where it is difficult for a woman to act alone. A time may come when we have to use my authority. The prince continued to explain the careful Letitia. And if I plan to use you for as a means of achieving my own desires. Zion pointed to her with his palm. From the very beginning, I would not offer you a deal. Prince Zionian swore, firmly squeezing his palm into a fist, and when his words stopped echoing from the walls of the chambers, an awkward silence reigned between him and Letitia. Awkward. I was mistaken when I decided that such a man would want me. The Letitia reasoned, bursting with a blush. Without listening to you, I incorrectly interpreted the intentions of your highness. How could I atone? She said. I have already made my share of apology. The prince calmly answered her, covering her eyes. However, I did not receive an apology for your words. What can I do to forgive me? I asked Flight with hope, folding my palms in the castle as in a prayer gesture. And from her question, Prince Zionian smiled only with the corners of his mouth, but very enough, as if expecting these words from her. Kiss the mouth that pronounced you at the wedding. He slyly extended his condition, pointing his finger at his smile. And then I will accept your apologies. He finished Zion, and from his voice demand, Letitia was even more bored with a blush. However, the girl immediately prevailed over herself and quickly hid a gaze from the prince, excitingly rubbing his wet hands. You said that you intend to do everything for revenge. Zion reminded the girl to her oath. Or were these empty words? Number quietly, but firmly answered Letitia, and rested her hand in a soft sofa. With an effort rose to cotton legs. This is a check if I can cope with the role with his mistress. And this is not real, she thought, walking towards the prince. Your Highness, Letitia whispered, leaning toward Zionian and carefully putting her hand on his shoulder. Can you close your eyes? She timidly asked, sitting on the prince's knees, and Zion held the girl with his hand, feeling the heat of her body. You behave like a virgin. With a grin, Zion faked the former wife of the Marquise, and she flared up with a crimson blush like a candle. Sorry, she whispered guiltily, clinging her eyes tightly from shame and embarrassment, as before a jump into the unknown. Here? She asked and touched the prince's neck. No, probably. You should rise higher. He held out a little more. He prompted the girl while she gave him kisses all the way to his mouth and finally reached the desired goal. Do you do it intentionally? Suddenly, Prince Letitia interrupted, taking her hand and pulling him away in order to look into her eyes. Sorry, I have not done anything like it for a long time. The girl apologized confusedly. Can I try again? Prince Zionian fell silent on her words, staring at the girl's face intently before replying her. Fine. We will assume that I got an apology. Return to the room. He ordered, having fun and looking aside. As I thought, he experienced me. Letitia decided to herself, also looking away from the prince, but at the same time feeling annoyed. Good night, Your Highness. She officially said goodbye to Zionian, finally bowing to her. And the next moment, without uttering a word anymore, and no longer raising his eyes on the prince, left his chambers. Zion looked around, and only finally remaining alone, opened a shirt on himself. How hot. Indeed, under the silk cloth, the prince was wet as in a fever, which puzzled him. And why is everything burnt inside? But suddenly, Langaro entered the chambers without a knock. Your Highness, excuse me for an unexpected invasion. I got to lead from the palace. But what kind of lead he received? He said so. stopping at half-word and staring at the prince with a stone face. Later, I will submit a petition for compensation for moral damage. Please approve him. Langaro strangled with a displeased look. At the invasion and indignation of the adjutant, Zionian gritted his teeth and answered that narrowed, eloquent look. Come out, Langaro! Zion ordered irritably, pulling his shirt over himself, while his adjutant awkwardly looked away. The next morning began earlier than usual, namely, from the bright sun outside the window and from the loud homon of the voices from there. What will you do if you take control of everyone in this form? Someone's voice finally woke up. Why is the outside so loud? She thought, and got out of bed, cautiously peeled out from behind the door on the deck of the ship. And there, opposite the mast, Letitia discovered an elderly man with a beard arguing with the prince's adjutant. Langaro, Lady Victoire, did you sleep well last night? He was worried with a polite smile, turning around to the girl's call. All thanks to you. Letitia thanked, but then clarified, recalling the dispute of the men. Is something wrong with the ship? However, the men were in no hurry with the answer. The old man awkwardly coughed into a fist, while the adjutant also awkwardly crossed his hands. Dear lady, we have disturbed you. The old man took the floor. Do not worry, this is nonsense, just wait a bit. Yes, nothing like that, just the engine failed. The adjutant echoed him, with a carefree look of sweetening the pill. How much time will the repair take? Letitia was worried, for which Langaro was guilty of his forehead, and the old man pulled his gaze. I don't think we will lay down at an hour or two, the adjutant admitted, sighing annoyingly, but suddenly remembered something. Exactly! It must be constant staying in the cabin. You are burdened? He suggested, breaking his hands and came closer. Me? No, not very. Letitia was confused. Such a good weather. Why don't you take a walk in the port? Langaro suggested. When we leave him, you cannot return to Northland for a whole year. Perhaps you want to say goodbye. The adjutant continued. With whom, damn me, should I say goodbye? After all, you told me to leave the past behind. Letitia thought sadly. Wait, on board there are several dresses that you will be interested in looking at. Meanwhile, Langaro remembered. I am sure they will look good on the lady. He flattered the girl that burst into a blush. Please follow me. And then Letitia was in a luxurious wardrobe, sitting in front of the toilet table, while the adjutant was absent after dresses. I just can't believe it. This is my face, she thought, touching her cheek and considering a new one in the reflection of the mirror. Although my appearance could not be called non-casual, she continued, mentally comparing herself the former with the present. What if? No, I don't think so. Suddenly, one assumption arose in which Letitia immediately doubted. What have you thought about? Langaro asked, who had already returned to the maid with a dress for fitting. The fact that Zion is amazing, timidly answered Letitia. This is true. His face is the greatest gift of the empire. Langaro proudly agreed. And he, by chance, did not change his appearance with the help of holy power? Slightly voiced Letitia her guess. My God, lady! The adjutant laughed before the tears, grabbing his forehead. How could this occur to you? Unfortunately, Mr. Zion has such a person from birth. With a smile, he assured, to which Letitia exhaled. I thought so too. So, enough fun. It's time to change your outfit. Having wiped the tears, Langaro said, and the maid helped the Letitia change. And soon Countess Anaros Victoire appeared before him in an elegant white dress, with a wide hat decorated with lilies. God! You are so beautiful, lady! Langaro applauded with a smile. Thank you for the compliment. Letting his Letitia thanked. Are you familiar with the geography of the port? The adjutant specified. Certainly, I come from here. Slydius reassured him, straightening his hat. Port of Northland Embankment. She indulged in nostalgia, recalling the strict system of sailboats standing in the city port. He is in walking distance from my house, so from a young age I often visited my father when he worked. I heard that because of gang groups, accidents have become more frequent here. Langaro was puzzled, going off the ship. Therefore, in this case, I provide you with escort, solemnly declared the adjutant, and Letitia followed his hand. This is Alex Wolfe. Langaro's pink-haired girl in his uniform was equally solemn that she bowed back. also known as the fastest sword of Westeros. He finished the adjutant with the performance, and Alex strictly straightened. And I thought it was a guy. Letting in thoughts admitted, looking at the belt with a scabbard and a blade. However, it seems glorious. Letitia Violet Winger, glad to get acquainted. The girl greeted with a smile, holding out her hand for shaking. No, no, lady. Suddenly, Langaro stopped her, with a condescending smile, and covering his eyes, patiently folded his hands behind his back. And then Letitia realized what exactly made an impermissible mistake. Or rather, she remembered her current name. My name is Anaros Victoire, Countess Kant. Flight was officially introduced, giving Alex a bright smile. Then she held out her hand to the one to whom she entrusts her life. And Alex accepted her trust, carefully taking the Countess by the hand. And then Alex Wolf did something that Letitia did not expect. She bowed and gallantly kissed her hand. Alex Wolf, glad to meet you, Countess Victoire. Alex greeted, raising amber eyes to Letitia. I hope for our cooperation, she added, letting go of the Countess, and both girls turned to the sailboat of Prince Zion. The ship on which we sailed is just wonderful. With a smile, Letitia said, holding a hat from the wind. The pride of Westeros, Platina Calesta. I called Alex a ship by name, and a gust of wind straightened all the snow-white sails. What a glorious name! Letitia quietly agreed with her, raising her head high in order to see the top of the mast. The fool paints the size. I like gondolas more. Suddenly, someone familiar voice came, and Letitia was numb from him. This voice is really, she thought, and with this thought, she turned fearfully, until the last hoping that she had seen. But, alas! Which of them is White Perry? Mrs. Winchester asked her daughter. Right there? With a smile, Olivia answered her. Olivia and Clarissa. In her thoughts, Letitia shouted their names and turned away, hugging herself by the shoulders, which she alerted to Alex. In my opinion, all boats are the same. Meanwhile, Clarissa continued, and Letitia turned around again, but very carefully. Compared to other troughs, our boat is the most sophisticated, right, Ollie? From her words, Letitia nervously clung to the elbow. Astor's ship is standing here nearby, and they cannot even find it. She was mentally amazed at the stupidity of her offenders. Real idiots. Also mentally concluded Letitia, and in the appendage to the conclusion, angrily pulled a hat on her forehead. Mother, the business goes well. We have to change the boat. This one is too small, Olivia complained, busily crossing her hands. Shouldn't we own a ship worthy to bear the name of the Marquise? She noticed, and Clarissa agreed with regret. In the end, Astor was supposed to receive a day on insurance for the death of his wife. All flights clenched under the weight of these words. I know, Olivia of her mother answered irritatedly, which forced Letitia to turn around, but already not hiding before anyone. This Letitia Violet, both in life and after death, remained useless. With a poisonous smile, Olivia said, all because Astor is too good. Clarissa praised her son, and Letitia felt how everything in her squeezed and became colder. Even after the death of this idiot, he refuses to get money because he blames himself, Clarissa said displeasedly. But Xenia tried. She does not know how to manage money at all. Olivia echoed her, and Letitia clenched his fists with anger. By the way, Ollie, did you talk to Lianka? Clarissa realized, and her daughter answered her. Of course, the conversation came out very useful. Lianka is the only heiress of the Snowazer family. With a cunning smile, Olivia told, and her eyes lit up with a greedy flame. She is the only one who survived a terrible fire, so I'm sure that at the wedding, she will have a lot of dowry. I can't wait. With a joyful smile, Clarissa said, and Olivia supported her with a nod, while Letitia watched from the side. I think this girl will show more zeal than Letitia. The native name from the lips of Clarissa struck, like a whipped slap in the face. How much time has passed since my death, and they are already conducting such conversations? Letting screamed in her thoughts, crushing her skirt with her hand. But in a fit of anger, she did not notice how Olivia began to boredly examine the surroundings of the port, and the next moment, their views involuntarily collided, and Letitia was again numb, like a roe deer in front of a poisonous viper. God. Suddenly, Olivia handed it out, and her eyes squinted quite to 2 slots, like a predatory bird that mixed the prey. Judging by your appearance, you are abroad. What is the continent from? She kindly asked, approaching Letitia. It is so nice to see here foreign guests in a long time. With the most polite smile, Olivia continued. That's just Letitia could not only answer, but even just breathe. She was paralyzed by animal fear. Lady! Olivia was surprised at her dumbness and a frightened look. Perhaps you do not speak Nordland? Then you probably know the official language of the continent? She suggested, while Alex looked excitedly at Letitia. I have to say something, but the voice does not obey. The girl realized with horror, covered with cold later. Madam! So in time, she came to her aid of Alex, holding out her hand and covering her from her gaze. Walking through foreign ports, of course, is interesting, but we have to go. She turned to Letitia in a calm tone. I will take you to the meeting place. And with these words, Alex took her hand and confidently led from Olivia away, and Clarissa Winchester and Olivia remained far behind, not understanding and even worriedly looking after them. It was close. She stated Alex, bringing Letitia to the restaurant, where they took places at the table by the window. It seems that these were your friends? Alexi suggested, to which Letitia nodded slowly to her, still recovering. Those women are my mother-in-law and gold. She finally spoke, in a dead voice, and abandonedly lowered her gaze at the table. You wanted to say former, lady? Resonly reminded her to Alex, leaning forward in order to look into the Letitia in the eye. Right. Thank you, Lady Alex. She gratefully thanked that. Do not mention it, Alex reassured her. This is all for Mr. Zion, she added at the end, before the waitress brought them drinks and sandwiches. Eat a little. Weight control is also of great importance for your new image, Lady Wolf advised. Sometimes it even comes to the point that, thanks to this, people simply will not recognize. She finished, and from her words, the Letitia became easier. Fine, I'll remember, she promised, for the first time in a long time, smiling at the one whom she could call her friend. True, appetite was not there, and when the door suddenly swung open, Letitia was joylessly examining a piece of cake on a fork. Here you are! Suddenly, a familiar, imperious voice behind him, and Letitia mechanically turned on him. I did not expect you to hide from me in such a place. Aster and Letitia snapped at the table with a displeased tone. Aster? This is all about that she could think, but the body treacherously jerked in fear, and the girl dropped a fork on the table. Lady, is something wrong? Immediately alerted Alex. This is my ex-husband, Letitia whispered to her, trembling with her whole body. Calm down. He will never recognize you, Alec assured her. The more you worry, the more suspicions are causing. But, the Letitia tried to object, but she was interrupted by someone's voice from the side. Aster, I'm sorry to make you run. Letitia turned around and saw that Aster had passed their table and was now talking with some kind of tent. Well, missed the local cuisine? With a smile, the one in whom Letitia recognized Viscount Vandella Brayson. This is the best friend of Aster, who came to our wedding. She also remembered. Thank God he did not recognize me. Letitia sighed with relief, pressing her hand to the heart out, while the men behind her continued to talk. Now you calm down, Lady Alex quietly asked, to which Letitia exhaled long. Yes, I'm already better. Well then, let's slowly rise and leave here. Also quietly suggested Alex, and Letitia nodded according to her. Are you serious, Aster? Suddenly Vandell shouted, jumping up from the table. This is all you want to say about the late wife? Hay has nowhere to go, Aster answered calmly. And since she could not have children, a second marriage is unlikely. And you decided to divorce her, understanding what hopeless situation it will be? Wandel asked a friend with condemnation. Vandal, I'm not a philanthropist. Aster cut off coldly, and thinking about the former, continued. She also thought only about herself, and she jumped into the river to make me feel guilty. From these unfair words, Letitia rose from the table. I don't even want to receive money from insurance. Suddenly they will fail. And from these words, tears performed in her eyes. Letitia bent, leaning on the table, and he trembled slightly, for her shit penetrated her. Lady! Alex was alarmed. I thought he refused money because of guilt. Letting thought while bitter tears fell into her hand. But Aster betrayed me to the very end. Flights finally realized the truth, as finally gave free rein to tears. If life is easy to end with a simple divorce, then praying for her soul a waste of time. Meanwhile, Aster finished. Lady, let's leave as soon as possible. Alexed Alex, standing up from the table and bypassing him, filed a flying to her hat. Are you okay, lady? Suddenly, Viscount Vandel realized, noticing that Letitia was crying, and also rose from the table. This is nonsense. Continue your conversation. Alex answered him, immediately blocking Letitia while she quickly put on her hat. In Northland, it is not customary to pass by a crying woman. Vandel insisted courteously, slowly approaching Alex. Please let me know if I can help with something, Viscount Vandel said, expressing sincere sympathy on his face. Didn't I tell you that everything is in order? Alex raised her voice, succumbing to strictness in him while he was tensed. I ask me to excuse me for being late. Suddenly came from the side, and Vandel and Alex were synchronously turned into a voice. It is worth leaving you alone for a while, and you begin to cry. Meanwhile, an unexpected guest continued, walking towards them, and the next moment, he was without demand, but very gently took Letitia by the chin and raised her tearful face. And what should I do with you? With a warm smile on his mouth, Prince Zionian asked and acquired Letitia, pulling him to his chest. Why are you so late and make my lady cry? Immediately indignantly asked Alex, playing along with the prince. How much can you wait for you? She continued. Sorry. Zion sighed guiltily, while Vandel watched in embarrassment incomprehensibly. From that moment on, I will no longer make you wait, Zionian vowed quietly, leaning towards Letitia, and she burst into a blush. And I will buy you what you want. He continued, and suddenly led Letitia from the table. Yes, so abruptly that a hat almost flew. Let's go out of here. Finally, the prince added, giving a Vandal with an Aster with a farewell sharp look over his shoulder. And soon Letitia, in the company of Zionian and Alex, left the restaurant, walking back to the port for a walking pace, and let all three accompany the warm sun, but the vitative mood definitely did not have for a walk. You cry again. Zion noticed new tears on the girl's face and asked her disappointedly, Do you still love him? I don't like him anymore, Letitia answered quietly, wiping tears off her face. It just looked not convincing. Lieutenant, Prince Zionian said, having a displeasure of the girl at the answer, and gazed intently at her from top to bottom. This is true, Letitia objected, but closing the eye from the prince. Just an unpleasant motive, Your Highness. Doesn't the juice flow in cut off and long rotting branches? She asked a question, remembering a happy childhood with Aster. This is the same, she explained, crying again, but immediately mentally reproached herself. I can't believe that I am crying because of the former. Zion must be a miserable. With these thoughts, Letitia hastened to wipe his tears with his hand, which did not hide from Zion. You are so sensitive, he said, stopping the girl in order to carefully wipe the moisture from her tearful face. And you are very easy to injure, Zionian continued, and lifted his face to Letitia by the chin, so that she looked at him. You don't even hide this fact. With these words, he gently grabbed her face with his palms, and the girl's cheeks flashed red. If I were in your place, it would be better to bite off my tongue, which allowed me to see myself in this form, Zionian said with a grin. It seems that you need more enlightenment. He snorted and turned away from Letitia. Enlightenment? To asked bewilderedly. However, Prince Zionian was in no hurry to answer, and silently headed for the carriage, while Letitia was sleeping behind him. I have to show you something, so silently follow me. Finally, Zion told her, before sitting in a carriage. By the time they drove up to the place of arrival, a clear day was already replaced by gloomy and therefore cool twilight. Do you know where we are? Zion sternly asked. Before that, who had been silent all the way, and Letitia timidly shook his head in response. This is the Winchester family cemetery. The prince told about this terrible place, which was the purpose of their trip. Why did we come here? Respectively asked Letitia, while Langaro helped her to get out of the carriage, and Zion himself had already gone forward. And again, the prince did not answer her, preferring to silently lead his companions through the cemetery, which was illuminated by the bright moon. But soon their path came to an end, and Zion stopped in front of a lone grave at the fence itself. Red, he commanded Letitia. But when she approached the tombstone, the cold passed on the back, because the vase of Violet Winchester was written on the stove. Langaro. Meanwhile, Zionian turned to his adjutant that he expected at a distance, and he got. Yes, Mr. Zion. What is the funeral custom in Northland? The prince asked him, examining rich graves and tombstones in the neighborhood. Together, in the deceased in the coffin, his favorite things are laid and buried. The adjutant began to tell, not seeing a catch in the issue. Favorite flowers, clothes, family photos, or personal items that are associated with the deceased. Listed Langaro. In the meantime, he spoke. Letitia, with sadness, raised the only, tiny bouquet of already dried flowers from her own grave. Looking at him in her hand, she did not notice how Zion suddenly approached her with a question. Are you wondering what's inside? Perhaps this question would have been discouraged before Letitia, but now it answered indifferently. I don't want to know, Your Highness. Number, I said that you need enlightenment. Zion did not accept her answer, and to the surprise of Langaro, suddenly clicked his fingers. And the next moment, 2 graves, armed with shovels, ran up to the grave of Letitia and began to actively dig up the coffin. And when his lid soon appeared from the damp earth, Zion ran his hand over her and then concluded, pretty cheap. Then he moved away from the coffin and ordered the graves. Open! And at the same moment, a shovel pierced into the lid of the coffin. With a creak, the coffin swung open, and both graves were numb. My God! The first exclaimed. This is already too much. I uttered the second. From their words, Letitia closed her mouth with horror, and she also felt a sickening stench poured out of the coffin. But when the girl still dared to come closer, she realized that the stench emanated from a pile of garbage, which filled the coffin. It is really cruel, Langro said shockedly, holding his nose with his hand and also looking at the contents of the coffin. Well, how could it be filled with garbage to the top? He asked indignantly, without addressing anyone, and came closer. Things symbolizing the dead man in life lie in the coffin. Zion reminded the words of the adjutant and laid his hand on the shoulder of Letitia, but the prince's hand seemed cold to her, like the hand of death itself, and then Zion continued with a grin. Look at it! Are you still sad about those times? He strictly asked the girl, leading her closer to a pile of stench waste in the coffin. But instead of an answer, Letitia suddenly lost consciousness, helplessly falling into the hands of Zion. Lady! The alarmed Langaro shouted. She is too weak. Critically, Prince Zionian, picking up the unconscious Letitia. She must be shocked by the LED. The adjutant suggested by examining the girl and looked at the prince hintily. You wanted to show her this? He asked with echoing indignation, pointing to a pile of garbage in a cheap coffin. Yes. She is so stupid that if you do not properly explain to her, she will not understand. Zionian answered calmly. In addition, revenge, which she thirsts so long, will not be easy. The prince added, and his adjutant sighed regretfully. Your methods are always effective, but you do not always choose the right moment. Langaro objected, scratching the back of the head. When the lady wakes up, you should apologize to her. In the end, the adjutant advised, and Zion looked at Letitia. I am sure she is experiencing another terrible nightmare. Langaro suggested with sympathy, also looking at the helpless girl. However, contrary to his assumptions, Letitia woke up from without dreaming, finding herself in bed. This is the room of His Highness. She was late for her awareness, and with a feeling of guilt, the girl stood out of bed. As for the owner of the chambers, he was immediately found at the desk, leading some notes and as if not noticing Letitia. You need to return to yourself. She decided in her thoughts and very carefully got out of bed, but only the floor creaked treacherously. Just lie and rest. Immediately, Zionian's calm voice came, and Letitia slowly turned to him. I think you have not moved away from shock, because you still have a heat. The prince continued, not looking up from his work at the table. What did I do so wrong? Suddenly, Letitia asked quietly, and Zion finally looked up at her. I loved him and tried to do everything possible. The girl continued, speaking of Aster and Bent, sitting on the bed. I did not want to be petty or cowardly in relation to my love, she admitted, folding her palms in the castle. Even if no one else knows this, I'm sure that I did everything possible, she said, as if to say herself. But were these feelings such a mistake that because of them they defiled my death? Slavika asked desperately, lowering her eyes. This is not your fault, Sionian said in a calm tone, putting down the pen to the onboard magazine, and tiredly rose from the table. You tried your best and was sure of your love. With these words, he approached the listening Letitia. You just chose the wrong person. He finished Zion, sinking to her knee in front of her in order to look into her eyes. I know, Your Highness, Letitia answered quietly, looking away from the prince, and he persistently asked, What exactly? Even after such an appeal, I will give my heart again, the girl answered, looking at the vase with a bouquet of marvelous roses. If this person says that it is difficult for him, I will come and take his hardships on myself, she continued, recalling herself and asked her, Even if it is a lie, I will believe it anyway. Memories became more painful, because Letitia smiled in them. How to believe and be deceived, it will be more difficult for me to regret that I did not believe. And in memory, Aster smiled at her. If I could, I would commit suicide as Lianka did. Letitia crushed a shirt on his chest, where there was a wound. My very existence is a mistake. I should not have been born. The girl sobbed and tears broke from her reddened eyes. But Zionian's eyes widened amazed, because only now he realized that Langara was right. This weak woman has a heart and body. In his thoughts, he repeated the words of his adjutant, looking at the crying Letitia. Perhaps this is due to shock therapy, since I seem to hit her crack with a hammer, the prince admitted to himself. In this case, I must make sure that it does not break. And with these thoughts, Zion held out his hand to the girl. Letitia, just as a deer cannot become a wolf, the sheep cannot become a tiger, he said, gently touching her cheek. So you were born. The prince smiled at Letitia and said in his thoughts, and the hand that heals her wound should be mine. You are not to blame for anything, Zion continued, brushing off the girl's eyelashes and hiding her disheveled curl behind the ear. The problem is that you chose the wrong partner. He held out Hindley, approaching her face with a smile. However, you should not be responsible for this. Having whispering these words, Zion gently kissed Letitia on the forehead. Your ex-husband, who did not appreciate your love, is to blame here, and a lover striving to take your place. They must be responsible for the deed. The prince said, looking in the eye and holding the girl. Put her on the bed. Do not assume responsibility for your grief. He continued, and resting his hands on the mattress, hanging over Letitia. You did everything in your power and was confident in your feelings. Zion straightened before saying the most important thing. Proud of it, he pronounced only 2 words, from which Letitia finally calmed down, let all be, and burst into a blush. And then she simply closed her eyes, demonstrating her confidence in the prince and her humility in front of his will. Finally, you stopped crying. With a satisfied smile, Zionian noticed, looking at the fruits of his labors. It still hurts you so much that you want to kill yourself? The prince asked, again leaning towards the girl. Number not so, she answered timidly, stammering with excitement, but then admitted, however, there are still sick places. Of course, this is not the responsibility of the salt. Zionian began, and Letitia felt he stroked her lips with a finger. But as a man, I will help you. He finished Saul with an answer, grabbing Letitia from bed, and she looked into his eyes. Then will not hurt? Letitia asked, already guessing what the answer would be, and therefore crushed the prince's gate in her hand. Sure. Zionian exhaled the answer in her mouth, closing his eyes with the color of the turquoise and falling to Letitia with his whole body. You can't even think about your ex, the prince promised her, giving kisses her neck and exposing her shoulders from the nightshirt. Aster Winchester, you were mine to everyone. In her thoughts, Letitia said, crushing Zion's shirt on his mighty back. I was anyone for you. In her thoughts, Letitia said, plowing his bed with his feet and thundering under the prince. Next to you, I always thought that I was not good enough. Therefore, each time locking myself in myself, I hated myself. But the person who forced me to feel it was you. She recognized the truth, recalling her husband for the last time. Now I clearly see what I should regret. Flight confidently decided to herself, weaving her hands with the hands of Zion. I had to love myself. Found Letitia in myself, with a greedy sigh, breaking a passionate kiss. Yes. Suddenly, Zionian and Letitia, all scarlet from his inner heat, looked quietly into the face of the prince hanging over her. That is exactly what you should look at me. Always. With a warm smile, Zionian told her, admiring her gaze, I will try my best for those who value me. In her thoughts, Letitia said, wrapping her hands on with her hands and kissing. The morning of the next day began with the whitish sun, which slowly looked into the prince's chambers through narrow windows. Thanks for the last night. The Letitia of Zion thanked the nightgown, while he stood in her pants in front of her. I will not repeat it any more, she vowed, to which Sul crossed her hands on her chest. Now I am just terrible, but I will try. Therefore, one day I will become a useful tool in the hands of your highness. The girl continued, pressing her hand to her heart. Therefore, please do not refuse me. Suddenly, I asked the Prince Letitia that I obviously did not expect such words from her. Every time you do this, I hate Violet Letitia. Zion answered, approaching the confused girl. However, I hope that I will like Inaros Victoire. With a smile, the prince finished, crossing his hands on his chest. And from his encouraging words, Anaros Victoire embarrassedly hid her gaze into the floor, bursting with a modest blush. When you arrive at the Duchy of Kant, you will have a tough schedule. Zion began to explain, pulling a shirt over himself. Before you leave, I will provide you with a service, so if you need something, say, he said to Anaros without turning around. I have already received too much. It was timid, squeezing the hem of a nightshirt with embarrassment and hiding her gaze into it. And yet, if I can ask for something else, I would like to get flowers, the girl admitted, to which Sol froze in surprise. Flowers? He asked, turning around. Yes, one will be enough, Anna answered, but Zion asked again. Why do you need them? Some time ago, a friend told me that she received a bouquet of flowers. With a nostalgic smile, Rosa explained. These flowers were from a man with whom she spent the first night. I envied this, the girl admitted, but then her smile erased, and the memories of her friend melted, and Anna added, I have never received flowers as a gift. For a few moments in the chambers of the prince, silence reigned, but at the same second, Rosa realized and stood out of the bed of the salt. Well, then I will go. With an awkward smile, she said goodbye and retired from the chambers of Zion, which remained to look after her. And when the girl completely disappeared in the corridor, the prince turned a thoughtful look at the flower vase. Such a simple thing. Meanwhile, the day in the county of Kant only gained momentum, and the radiant sun rose higher above the port of the city. This first day in the county, Anna decided to spend a walk along his port. And naturally, in the company of Lady Alex. At first, the girls looked into the jewelry shop, and then to the confectionery, which turned out that Alex was a vase of sweet tooth. Lady, did you like the view of the port of Kant? She asked, what Anna answered with a smile. Yes, I had a wonderful time, and I did not even notice fatigue in the legs, the Countess admitted. Not to notice this was my mistake. Alex apologized. I advise you to relax, she proposed, accompanying Anna to her chambers. You also have a good rest. Finally, Rosa wished. On this, Alex left the Countess, and Anna, slightly tired of a walk with a long creak, opened the door to her chambers. And there she was, waiting for a real flower garden of violets and white roses, which transformed the Countess's room into a fairy tale in reality. And yet, if I can ask for something else, I would like to get flowers. I remembered Anna, frozen from the beauty scene, and then she carefully went deep into the room, and without restraining joyful tears, picked up one of the many bouquets. I have never received flowers as a gift. Once again, I echoed my own words, and Anna knelt down. A year later, for Zionian, who gave me spring when I asked for only one flower, I will return to the perfect Ana Rosa Victoire. So she decided on that magical day, and time from that day flew unnoticed, taking us to the Badran family estate. However, time flew quietly, not only for the one who once sailed with the flow, but also for those who hurt her. Having read out an article in the newspaper which spoke about the new factory of Astor Winchester, Anna joylessly put the one on the table. A year has passed since I came to the county of Kant. She indulged in reasoning, returning to the morning tea party. I wonder how His Highness is doing. In her thoughts, she asked a question and thinking, and froze with a cup of tea in her hand. He had never contacted me during this year. She thought with longing, and her gaze involuntarily caught on the flower vase. Perhaps Anna could sit for so long before the flowers, remembering that day if she had not suddenly called out, "Anna Rose? What do you think about?" The Marquis Edgar Bodrin, a red-haired, broad-shouldered, and very stately man, asked, "What do you mean? Should I worry about some kind of survivor?" Anna answered the question with a question, having drank tea. "Rubler! Don't say that!" Suddenly, the Marquis Edgar objected ardently, and with a feeling clapped his palm on the table. "Are you not a precious guest, and a family friend, Bodrin?" With notes of resentment in his voice, the Marquis asked, putting his palm to his heart. Then he leaned on the table, in anticipation of an answer, and while an awkward silence reigned over them, Anna indulged in memories. Family Bodrin, Marquis, known for their alcohol production in Kant's County. Suddenly she remembered their wine. And they are also my teachers who helped me a lot to study the unique accent, customs, and culture of County. His Highness presented me like our allies. And it is precisely this family that will confirm my personality of Anaros Victoire. These are really very pleasant words, Edgar. After a short pause, Anna answered with a sincere smile. However, her smile could not drive the sadness from his friend's face, and when he sat down at the table, he looked at the girl with longing in his eyes. "I heard you are returning to Northland," Edgar began, and Anna began to understand the reason for his sadness in his eyes and words. "I also heard that you need to solve some things there," the Marquise continued, and Rosa involuntarily remembered Astor with Lianka. "Yes," briefly confirmed by the former Letitia Violet, the word of a friend, and calmly took a cup of tea from a porcelain saucer. "Only in this way can I completely reborn as Anaros Victoire." With a light smile on the lips, Anna explained to a friend, "I am concerned." Suddenly Edgar admitted, clasping his hands in the castle, "What if, when you leave, you will find yourself in the epicenter of the storm, and you will be sad again, unable to force yourself to smile, as in our first meeting?" He said worriedly, "Thank you for your care?" Anna friend thanked, sincerely flattered by such excitement for her person. But the one that was a year ago, and the current one, is completely different. With a warm smile, she assured the Marquise, crossing her hand on her chest. "This will be an arrogant request, but Anaros?" Edgar suddenly hesitated, embarrassedly hiding his gaze and bursting with a blush. "Think again before leaving." Finally, he finished, the Marquise hopefully glancing at Anna, amazed at such a revelation. But before she decided to answer, she was suddenly ahead of her third party. "Why don't you go to the warehouse for reserves?" Anna and Edgar turned together amicably on the voice that Bodrin, owned by Marcy, the Marquise with red hair like that of her brother. "If you know what will sound arrogant, why talk?" With a fervent smile, she attacked the unfortunate brother. "And what else is the epicenter of the storm? Didn't you sleep in literature lessons?" Having finished with her brother, Marcy suddenly aimed at Anna. "Rosa, why are you listening to these nonsense?" Strictly reproached the Marquise with a confused friend, approaching that. "How can you call yourself a woman cunt after that?" He already threw on Anaros, and she smiled awkwardly to her. "Sorry, Marcy," Anna apologized, to which the Marquise crossed her hands on her chest and asked, "Tell me specifically what you apologize for." "There is a saying in Kant, when a sea breeze blow, expand the sails." The dew began, rising from the table. "As they say, the time is very valuable. Is it not to blame for the fact that I miss him aimlessly?" Anna answered poetically. "Perfect." Marcy praised her, closing her emerald eyes with satisfaction and gifting her friend with light applause. And the next moment, she had already rushed to Rosa with a hug. "Well, who will look at you now, like a foreigner? And all this thanks to the best teacher." Anna did not remain in debt, and with a warm smile answered the arms. "You flatter me." The Marquise was embarrassed, pulling away from her friend. "This is true, Marcy," Rosa insisted, holding her hands. "Learning other people is so difficult," Anna continued, recalling all the lessons and instructions of the Marquise, as well as her support. "I will always be grateful to you," gratefully thanked Anaros, the one who became her older sister in a year. "This is so cute. I will die now." From tenderness, she squealed Marzi, and barely restraining her tears with joy, kissed her friend on the cheek. Fine. You worked so hard that we should give you a reward, the Marquis said, taking the envelope from his pocket. This is your new identity card, Marzi explained, handing the envelope to Anna, and she immediately read its contents. From today, you are our relative on the sideline. The Marquise voiced the content of the document in the envelope. I hope for your cooperation, cousin. With these words, Marzi extended her hand to shake, but Anna answered her with a hug. Thank you very much, she whispered, now officially. Anaros Victoire, hiding her face on the shoulder of a newfound cousin. It's too early to be impressed. With a good smile, Marcy reassured her, gently pulled away. What? Anna was surprised. Now you can go out! Suddenly the Marquis shouted to someone behind the dew, and she heard someone approaching steps. And turning around, Anaros at first did not believe her eyes, and unable to restrain joy, shouted in surprise, Mr. Langaro? We have not seen each other for a long time, lady. With a smile, her adjutant of Prince Zionian greeted her smile. You look much better. I think this was the best decision to seek the protection of the Marquis Baudron. He continued, approaching the Trinity. He did not forget about me. Anna was delighted in her thoughts and hastened to ask her old friend, How are you doing? Great. Verily, and with a smile, answered her as an adjutant. As always, I was busy with the affairs of His Highness Zionian. By the way, why are you here? Did you come to pick me up a year later? Anna asked hopefully, bursting with excitement with a blush. However, before the answer, Langaro put his hand in his chest pocket, and only then said, The reason I am here. To test you, lady. With these words, the adjutant seized an envelope with a seal from his pocket and respectfully handed it to Anna. Test? She asked in surprise, and Langaro hastened to explain herself. After all this time you studied hard. In each report from Miss Marzi and the Marquis of Baudron, there are many positive reviews. He held out Hindley, betraying the mentioned. With an understanding smile, Anna turned to her friends that they looked very awkward anywhere, but if only not to her eyes. Please read the contents. Langaro reminded himself, handing Anaros an envelope, and she immediately opened it. Inside was a certain invitation, and after reading his content, Anna asked, Invitation to the floral ceremony? Is this from the Duke of Sullivan? Marzi clarified excitedly. In an instant, she was nearby, and began to explain to Rosa. Every year, at the beginning of summer, the Duke arranges a large tea party. This is the place where most of the nobles of Kant are invited. If you want to confirm your personality of Kant's noblewoman, there is no better chance. Continued for the Marquis of Langaro. However, now the tea party itself was not so worried about Anna as a kind of test, and therefore she asked, And my test? During tea drinking, do not let anyone guess that you are a foreigner, the adjutant explained, erecting the index finger. This is a test to you from His Highness Zionian, Langro added. Only from these words the dew became even more alarming, and these anxieties did not think to leave Anna, because, as it turned out, the tea party will have a dress code. No green color. The tea party will take place during the day, but this color is too dark, she explained Marzi, looking at the dresses in the dressing room. And if you use light? Rosa clarified. Honestly, heavenly blue is more suitable for you, the Marquis answered her. But this time we take it, she said, choosing a pink dress, and suddenly asked, This can be considered for your debut? I was already married. What a debut. Anna smiled, standing in front of a large mirror. Who cares? Objected Marzi. This is your first appearance in our society. So this is a debut, she said and squinted at the embarrassed friend. Be bolder, do, she shouted the Marquise, slapping the one on the back. Your emphasis is perfect, so you can't make mistakes. But you know what your biggest problem is? Marzi asked condescendingly, and Anna shyly asked her. Which? Your timid behavior. Women in Kant are not shy, the Marquise answered, strictly crossing her hands on her chest. Perhaps everyone has their drawbacks, she continued, helping Anna dress up in a dress, the color of pink pearls. However, to be confident, you do not need to be perfect. Already, because you are trying, you deserve to be bold. Having said this, Marcy stepped aside so that Anna could properly evaluate her work and just see herself in all its glory. In addition, your former and his mistress are to blame for everything. So why don't you be proud of yourself? Added the Marquise. Roughly speaking, you are not a criminal. In the end, she made fun. But in response, Du somehow seriously looked at her. Marcy, thank you, but I'm really a criminal, she said in a calm tone, which is why the Marquise was shocked in shock. I am guilty of issuing myself for another person and forging documents. With sincere naivety, Anna reminded her friend. Yes? So you are not going to wear the dress that I have prepared for you? Quickly replaced Marcy the topic, looking away. Of course I will wear it. After all, you chose it specifically for me. With a cheerful smile, Anaros assured her friend. I think blue jewelry with simple decor will suit you. Marcy perked up in an instant. Just be ready in the morning. Will you come with me, Marcy? Anna asked her friend, and she answered with a smile. The invitation was sent not only to you, and when the Marquise retired from the dressing room, Rosa turned to the mirror and thanked her in her thoughts. Thank you, Marcy. So he flew all day in troubles and preparations for tomorrow's tea party until the night fell on the Bodrin estate. Rather, tomorrow, Anna thought, with her eyes closed in her bed and waiting for sleep that she did not want to come. Will I handle it? Suddenly, an alarming thought entered her thoughts, and the girl squeezed the sheet in her hands, still not opening her eyes. But the next moment, Anna felt that she was falling, and opening her eyes, she became the former Letitia, sitting at the table, among people. I am so glad that we can be here all together, like a real family. Suddenly, Lianka said that she was sitting opposite her. My love, I have been waiting for this day for so long, Astor said with a smile, pulling his mistress to himself and putting it on his knees. And Letitia is not offended when you say that. With childish naivety, she asked him Lianka, looking directly into her eyes. Do not worry about it. Astor's lover affectionately reassured his mistress, bringing the smiling lips a bang with scarlet, like blood, wine. This woman is only a step on the way to our happiness, he said, with an arrogant smile and looking at Letitia. When can I completely free myself from this hell? She asked a question, staring indifferently into the void. Perhaps she would have sat the whole nightmare, being only a helpless observer if someone had not grabbed her hand. You are really annoying. A familiar voice came to the pain in his chest, and Letitia turned to Prince Zionian. Your Highness? All that Letitia could whisper, looking incorrectly at the prince and no longer knowing this is a dream or a reality. You are still so weak that it seems to be broken. You should look away from you, Zion said to her with sadness. But this is strange. He continued, and the world of dreams around them was transformed. He was empty, but also became lighter, as if the sun had risen. In your weakness there is something that attracts me, the great Saul of the Empire of Westeros admitted, gently kissing its wrist. And from the touch of his lips, Letitia did not hold back a joyful smile. But the main thing is that she laughed quietly and sincerely. Did you know? Your Highness smells like the sun, Letitia said, touching the prince's face, and he was gone to her hand. And you smell like tears, Zion said, affectionately kissing her to the crown. What is this smell? Slavici was surprised, and the prince answered her. Salt, bitter, slightly sweet, like from a wet curtain during the rain. Zion told everything, stroking her face. And indeed, now I am much better, Letitia admitted with a smile, closing her eyes and taking the prince's hand in her. However, the time before awakening and falling asleep is always so painful. The girl continued, and longing leaked in her words, and I do not know when time heals it. Her voice became more and more, and Zion listened to her and listened to her. Try today to sleep well. With a smile, he wished, and suddenly, carefully, took Letitia in his arms, like his narrowed bride. And he carried Letitia in her chambers, and with every step, flowers bloomed under his feet, and the room was transformed into the garden. Flowers! Thank you very much for them. Letitia smiled, fulfilling what a year was waiting for, thanked the prince for a gift. These flowers, Zion whispered, bowing to her and raising his chin with his fingers. I can bring you much more. Continue to try. You do well. And with these words, he laid Letitia on flowers and dug into its mouth. And then he called her by name, whispering this name in her mouth. Anaros. And through a blessed dream, Anaros smiled at him. The next morning began with a planned trip on a carriage to the estate of the Duke of Sullivan. An amazing dream. Anaros thought thoughtfully, watching the replacement landscapes from the carriage window. It even seemed to me as if His Highness really came to me. She remembered his touch, as if in reality. "Rosa, what do you think about?" Suddenly Marcy called her, and a pleasant obsession before her eyes immediately dispelled. "Are you worried, right?" With a smile the Marquis Baudrin suggested, to which Anna uncertainly answered her. "A little. I see this in your face. Make me proud of you, Anaros Victoire." Boyko wished the Marquise. "Thank you, Marcy. I will definitely do that," Anna promised. Meanwhile, the carriage has already entered the courtyard of the Duke's estate. We arrived. The coachman notified, and soon Countess Kant, Anaros Victoire, appeared from the carriage in all its glory. "My God, do!" Suddenly, a familiar and very enthusiastic voice came to her, and the Countess turned. "Not a single country has such a beautiful lady. I thought I was blind." With compliments, Edgar met her approaching. "Well, today the sun shines so brightly," Anna joked, but the next moment came from the side. "Am I going crazy?" The Dew and Edgar turned together to the indignant Marcy, and she said, "You did not make compliments in my life." Strange, it seemed to me, or recently, they began to speak anxy. Her brother quarreled, for which he immediately paid. "This is already too much." As if Gorgon's jellyfish hissed Marcy, grabbing an unhappy brother by the breast and shaking his soul out of that. "I said something wrong?" Edgar asked desperately. "You are angry with me," the sister hissed again. And Dew suddenly noticed something at the gate. "Marcy, look there!" She warned her friend, pointing to the Marquise and her brother, to the column of the curates entering. Guests at the tea ceremony begin to gather. With a cunning smile, she handed Marcy, tapping the chin by the fan. "Therefore, it is time for us to go and boast of our rose," the Marquise solemnly and proudly declared, pointing to Dew with her hand. However, the solemn debut was impudently interrupted. "And who is it here?" Suddenly, someone's stinging question sounded. "Is this the famous Marcy Baudrin?" The green-eyed brunette was imaginary surprised, with a grin crossing his hands on his chest. "God, who are you? I don't know. You think you are not so famous?" The Marquise did not remain in debt, playing sincere confusion. "Do not pretend. We have already seen each other many times." The wounded brunette flared up, on which Marcy was covered with a fan. "Count Hayden, have not seen each other for a long time." Instead of a sister, Edgar was awkwardly greeted, holding out his hand to the Count for shaking. "Your Excellency, Marquis de Baudrin. How are you?" Hayden answered politely, and only then Marcy remembered him. "So you are? How long have you been going to pursue me and have a dispute with me?" she asked indignantly, poking the Count by a fan. "I came first. You arrived later." Hayden was already indignant, to which Marcy answered indifferently, "Then go already. In any case, did you not wait for me?" She continued the mockery, to which the Count flared again. "Waited? Yes, we just drove up." However, the verbal skirmish was suddenly interrupted by a blue-eyed, brown-haired man who was wedged into the confrontation between the Count with the Marquise. "Miss Marcy, you are so beautiful today." Blaming up by a blush, Charlene said, "The bride of Count Hayden," who immediately banged, "It seems to me that you shine brighter than all the jewelry on your dress." She continued to give the Marquise with compliments. "Thank you, Charlene." Marcy thanked her, and then Charlene turned her curious look at Anna. "And who is your companion?" "This is my relative, Countess Anaros Victoire." The Marquis calmly explained, taking Anna by the hand and letting it closer. Recently, her father died, so she was busy with family continuity, and so she debuts so late. "I am glad to get to know you. My name is Anaros." Anna was respectfully introduced, performing an elegant curtsy. "God, you are so beautiful, probably because you are a relative of Miss Marcy." Immediately attacked her with the compliments of Charlene. "Yes?" "Thank you." Rosa thanked awkwardly, but the next moment she heard a familiar voice. "So you come from Kant? We intersected in Northland." Suddenly, the approaching Olivia Winchester said, and for a moment Anna was numb from surprise. "This is my friend. She is from Northland." Charlene and Olivia explained with a bow. "My name is Olivia Winchester." Do not be nervous. You are no longer Violet Letitia. In her thoughts, Anaros herself strictly ordered herself, turning a slight trembling. Yes, it seems that we watched the ships in the port together. With a friendly smile, the Countess, Anaros Victoire, remembered. I remember, because you have such a beautiful profile. Now you are just as beautiful. She was disassembled for the compliments of Olivia. And you are the Marquise awake, right? She turned to Edgar. I heard from Charlene that you were the elder brother of Marzi. I also heard about Winchesters from Northland. The Marquise answered her and continued. Just as I heard about the production of white tea. This is the recently opened Astor Winchester case? He specified, and Olivia was amazed. Do you know my brother? God. And as soon as such a brilliant idea occurred to the brother, with tenderness, Olivia began to praise Astor. Well, it was necessary to guess to import white tea from Westeros itself. She continued to brag away while the Brink listened, and Anna could not help but notice their cold gaze, even piercing glances on impassive, like masks, faces. Looking at their faces, I assumed that they had already heard from Langaro about how I lived in Northland, she thought. As far as I heard, white tea is ideal for neutralizing lime water. He took the word Edgar. In Northland, it is considered a problem, but such water after connecting with white tea is useful for the skin, right? He specified. I wonder how you discovered the effectiveness of tea, what grows only in Westeros. The Marquise deliberately asked a leading question. It seems that this tea was discontinued in Northland due to its sour taste. Edgar continued to make an uncomfortable topic. It is embarrassed to admit it. Olivia spoke shyly. But when my brother just started this business, the whole family was against it. He was going to import exclusively white tea, which had already been defeated in Northland. I considered him crazy. No one supported him. Olivia admitted with longing. But the former Letitia Violet remembered that day well. My brother has achieved success exclusively on their own, Olivia proudly stated. And in her thoughts, Anna shouted, Lie! It was I who borrowed money to him to prove his faith and show him his support. Due to the fact that I so desperately supported Astor, my father eventually committed suicide. Anna spoke to herself. Truly, it is amazing how people are found. Olivia's voice returned her to the present, and Rosa realized that they were already turning to her. I did not expect to meet you again. I hope that we will make friends, Olivia said with a smile, holding her hand out affably. You used me as a fertilizer for my own growth. But I'm glad that nothing has changed, Anna thought ominously. However, the next moment, her gaze slipped down and involuntarily caught on the handbag of Olivia, which alerted the former Ash. Your handbag is very beautiful. Rosa made a compliment, considering a very familiar color and jewelry of a lady's handbag. Do you like it? Is it really a great design? Immediately, the delighted Olivia realized, raising a handbag for a better review. She was complete with a fan. She continued to brag and defiantly revealed the very mentioned fan. It is made of a rare silk brought from a distant country. Olivia blurred in a smile, fanning the fan, but once Letitia Violet knew that it was another lie. After all, the dress of her grandmother was sewn from this very silk. I thought this is a beautiful thing, and this is only a secondary product, she said impassively. Such a pattern would be better for a dress. God! How did you know? Olivia Winchester was taken aback and bashfully burst into blush, realizing that her deception was disclosed. Initially, this handbag was really a dress, but it was redone, Olivia admitted, shamefully looking down. Meaningless work. So simply said Anaros, while smiling at Olivia, amazed to such a straightforwardness. It seems to me that the dress would suit you more. Slightly sweetened the dew of the pill and asked, Why did you do that? In fact, Olivia said, embarrassedly hesitation, this is a gift left by me as a memory of a deceased daughter-in-law. Every time I look at this bag and fan, I think about it. I would really like time back when she was still alive. So what do you think of me? Yes, it cannot be. In gloomy thoughts, the former Letitia Violet hissed, Once upon a time, one aristocrat from Kant was bored of his deceased wife. Suddenly she began, looking up at Olivia. Maybe you heard, but in memory of her, he retained her room in the same condition for 40 years. This is a story about Baron Meadow. Charlene shared her knowledge with an enthusiastic smile, and Anna nodded to her. Right. They say that the Baron carefully cared about the room, that it seemed as if his wife was about to open the door and leave from there. From the story of Anna Rose before the eyes of Charlene, the image of a cozy room arose that with love and care was protected by a Baron. Incredible! Whatever country you live, longing for dead is the same. Olivia laughed awkwardly, depicting a smile. I think this is the destiny of those who were left behind. She spoke ignorantly, which Anna expected from her. Her thin lips touched a barely noticeable smile, and with her Anaros turned to the former sinking. But, Lady Olivia, after all, you pushed the clothes left by your relative, making a bag out of it. With a piercing look, she reminded. And from her words, but the main thing from her gaze, Olivia flinched. And then she discovered the views of all the gathered gentlemen. Over time, old clothes, dusting in the closet, are forgotten. She tried to justify herself, but it turned out very awkward. I was afraid that I would just forget about her. She continued to invent Olivia, and if Charlene clearly believed her, then the count is not very good. And this handbag and fan can always be kept with you, right? I just wanted to extend the memory of the daughter-in-law. My God, Ollie, how can a person's soul be so kind? The naive Charlene regretted her friend, putting her hand on her shoulder. But Anna Rosa no longer suffered by naivety, and therefore firmly stated in thoughts, Lie. That dress did not suit you. Indeed, unlike me, Olivia, like Astor, and all the hard drives, a thin physique and long limbs. And when they kicked me out of the house, she bypassed a dress to mock. But she could not wear it for a long time. However, it seems that she really liked the dress if she even ordered him to redo it. Rosa concluded, watching Olivia. And how did she dare to do this, with a precious gift from my grandmother? With these angry thoughts, Anna clenched her hand into a fist. Hold on, we do not know where Langaro can watch us now. Marzi whispered imperceptibly to her, gently poked her elbow. However, why did your bride die? Meanwhile, Olivia Hayden asked. Apparently you were with her of the same age. My daughter-in-law was from a dysfunctional family, Olivia told him, making deep sadness and regret on her face. Therefore, our whole family tried to treat her with love. She said, but only the worst remembered for due. However, she still did not feel happy. But with these words, the former Letitia Violet could agree. I think our feelings have not reached her heart. Olivia sighed heavily, taking her eyes wet from tears aside. And when her father died, the sister also left for him. She sobbed, covering her face with her hands, and Charlene rushed to console her. Do not cry, Ollie. After all, everything is already in the past, right? She said that when Edgar looked at the quiet Anna with sympathy. I did not choose to die. You killed me, she said in her thoughts, not paying attention to the pity and views of the Marquise. You all are just sorry that I have nothing more to steal. Rosa decided to herself, pursing her lips with aversion to Olivia. All of you to one killer! She shouted in her thoughts, seeing Olivia through and knows that now she was not crying at all. And this knowledge should be reflected on her face, because Marzi looked at her very alarmed. By the way, why did Lady Olivia go all this way from Northland here? Suddenly, the Marquise asked a very reasonable question. I came here to see the famous Port of County Cant. Olivia answered, but Marzi did not even think to retreat. Does someone accompany you? She continued the interrogation, to which Olivia was awkwardly answered. I am alone, but I arrived in county with Charlene. Just amazing, Lady Olivia. She fogged the Marquise, which is why Olivia asked her bewildered. What? Unmarried women to travel 1 to foreign countries should be unpleasant. Calmly explained to her by Marzi and continued. Moreover, as I understand, Nordland is a particularly conservative place of old views in relation to women. And since these stereotypes are very narrow and excessively strict, the Marquise withstood the pause, hiding a crafty smile behind the fan. Then, why did Lady Olivia come to another country alone? Marzi identified the last word from which Olivia was dumbfounded. Right. When she gets married, unnecessary rumors can be known. Mentally noted Anna, standing next to Marzi. How did you get permission to come here? The Marquise asked the control question, what Olivia squeezed a skirt in her hands. Lady Marzi, my mother wanted me to see more and learn about the world. Olivia was built again, so she loves and cares about her only daughter. She praised her mother, but Anna knew the truth. Clarissa, how traditionally it was all love to her son. She remembered how offended sometimes Olivia looked in the back of her mother. And now, when the price of a family promotion has risen due to Astor's success, Olivia is difficult to establish relations with good families. I will never believe that she arrived alone, Anaros said in her thoughts, squinting at Olivia agaze. I am sure that she is hiding something. So Anna decided to herself, while Olivia, with all her might, portrayed a relaxed look. I see my dear faces. Suddenly, someone's melodic voice came, and everyone turned together to his owner. Marquis Baudrin, Miss Marcy. With a smile, a green-eyed blonde, the Duchess of Sullivan greeted the vigorous, as well as our other guests. The Duchess turned to everyone else, and Olivia embarrassedly lowered her gaze, fingering Seryoja. We are so glad that all of you have joined the tea party of the Sullivan family. Solemnly finished the Duchess with a greeting. This is an honor for us, the Duchess of Sullivan. Edgar was the first to answer, bowing. Thank you for your visit. She thanked that. However, why are you all here? Suddenly, the Duchess of Sullivan asked with a polite smile that did not leave her face. I ask us to excuse us. Edgar was the first to realize that they were delaying and led his sister to the garden of the estate. A little behind them was Anna, when she heard the cheerful Charlene behind her. Let's go soon, Ollie. Anaros turned around, giving Olivia an unkind look, and promised her in her thoughts. Do not even think that this is the end. You can forget the insult, but not offenders, she said to herself, watching Olivia carelessly fun with her friend. Anna Rosa sharply turned away, accelerating her step, and, before catching Edgar and Marzi, vowed to herself, I will return everything to you in full. Meanwhile, a melody of violin was already heard to her ears. After all, what kind of tea party of high society does without music? And soon in front of Anaros, Victoire opened a view of the garden of the Sullivan estate, where all the guests of the flower ceremony gathered. Beautiful melody and delicious treats, intelligent conversations of venerable nobles. You can't imagine the best place for the debut. And so, slowly following Edgar and Marzi, Anaros finally arrived at the venue for her test. But suddenly, Anaros accidentally noticed one standing guest, which turned out to be a large gray cat. Is this a duke's pet? She suggested. And as if reading her thoughts, the cat immediately turned to her and looked with yellow eyes. In addition to the cat had a birthmark, which circled the left eye around, and while Anna admired them, he meowed. I never had a cat due to Astor allergies. Maybe I should have a return to Nordland, Anna thought. Rosa, let's go! Edgar called her, and Rosa turned away from the cat. Our table is there, added by Marzi, indicating the direction. Yes, I'm going. The girl hastened to return to friends, leaving a new friend in the person of the cat to watch her after. Black tea and wine, the strongest. Sandwich with salmon and basil. I made the marquise in order when all three sat at the table. I wonder if someone will understand that I'm not from Kant, Anna wondered, while the waiter recommended Marcy wine. At first, it was difficult for me to get used to their tea culture. Rosa admitted to herself, recalling the lessons in tea party in Kant. Lady, what will you be? The waiter asked with a bow. Please, I just have tea with cream, Anna answered. And when drinks with treats were fed on the table, Dew with Friends was able to enjoy the very flower tea. Have you seen each other for a long time, Edgar? Suddenly, a brunette in the company of an ash-haired man went to their pale-haired man. You must have been very busy these days, the brunette suggested. I was waiting for you and was upset. With a grin, he declared the second. Soon the wine supply season will come, so before its end, I have something to worry about. Edgar answered them with a smile. We are impatiently waiting for your wine, he assured the brunette, and turned to the marquise. You are even more beautiful today, Lady Marzi. You are as bright as you punished at sea. He gave Marzi with compliments, on which the marquise slyly covered her face with a fan. Do you like our tea? The brunette did not lag behind everything, and then with a smile, Marzi answered him. Thank you for asking. However, you don't want to ask anything else? She hinted, and both men smiled awkwardly, realizing her tactlessness. Then let me ask you who this lady is next to you? The brunette asked, and without waiting for an answer, turned to Anna. Let us see each other for the first time, but I can't help but say about your beauty. You seem to go straight from the famous picture. This is my younger sister. Really beautiful? She was responsible for Anaros Marquise. With a cheerful smile, slammed the fan. In fact, I'm 2 years older. The Dew whispered to her. If you are beautiful, no one will notice. Marcy also answered in a whisper. Hello, my name is Anaros Victoire. Anna introduced herself with a polite smile, taking her debut in Kant's society. Victate? Is this not one of the families taking their beginning from the Marquis de Baudrin? The ash-haired man specified. Yes, right. Not many know about this. The Dew answered him, but the man continued. My great-great-grandfather once mentioned you. I was worried about the future of the Victoire family, because the Count did not leave the heir. He continued, and Anna was slightly worried. And yet I am surprised to see such a countess. At these words, Edgar noticed the confusion of Dew and hurried to her help. It is truly amazing, isn't it? He asked sonorously. Even after generations, the black hair of the Victoire remains the same. Right! My great-great-grandfather also had very black hair. The guest agreed, and Anna exhaled with relief. Thank you, Edgar. She thanked her friend in a whisper, to which the Marquise burst into a blush and embarrassedly hid a smile into a fist. What are you talking about with such interest? One of the guests was curious. Let me join. And in this way, Anaros Victoire attracted the attention of almost every guest of the flower ceremony. So, are you a relative of Marzi? Some asked. So young and already inherited the family, they showered others with compliments. I was pleased to meet everyone. Please excuse me for a moment. And on this, Anna came out from the table. Well, my debut is very good. She thought on the way to the ladies' room. But I need to take a break. Wasn't you going to wear a turquoise ring today? Suddenly, the voice of Count Hayden was heard, and Anna turned around. After all, I was preparing for this and put on blue cuffs. The Count continued annoyingly. And really strange. Charlene agreed to guiltily. When I was going to wash my hands, I took off and laid it on the table. And after it disappeared. The bride of Hayden was explained. Maybe it fell to the floor? The Count suggested. I thought so too, but I did not find it. Charlene answered sadly. Maybe it rolled under the furniture. Hayden did not give up everything, but Anna reminded him of something, and she thought about it. Really? Or maybe it's all about the maid. The Count was desperate while Anna continued her journey. It cannot be Hannah, Charlene objected. Can't it be that she has done all the way here and did it? Rosa reasoned, already walking along the corridor of the estate. And so, carried away by neglected thoughts, the girl reached the high white doors leading to the ladies' room of the estate. But when she went inside, she ran into the frightened Olivia that she immediately turned away and cried out, Countess Victoire? However, this gestation did not hide from Anna's eyes, and in her thoughts she wondered. Now she was hiding something in the sleeve? And out loud she kindly asked, closing the door behind her, Miss Olivia, how do you like the tea party in the county of Kent? It is slightly different from Nordland, right? Anna continued with a smile, passing by the wary of Olivia. Yes, here everything seems a little unfamiliar. She admitted awkwardly and hastily added, But Kent is unique. By the way, you and Miss Marzi received a lot of attention. You were amazing. She switched to compliments while Anna was powdered. No, Marzi was amazing. I stand out that I am her relative. Anaros calmly answered her. And so people constantly surround you? Olivia was curious, to which Anna honored her with her gaze. Like petals in flower wine. You are just beautiful. With a smile, Olivia flattered. Only Rosa was not needed by her flattery. It seems that you were paid much less than you thought. She concluded in her thoughts, seeing the envy of Olivia through and through. Perhaps you expected more interest from men to you as a foreign woman, especially because of differences in culture. But all their attention was attracted by Marzi and I. Anna reasoned to herself, remembering how Olivia Lonely sat at the table. By the way, what did you do here? She asked. Well, after a long journey, I'm a little tired. Olivia was explained. You probably even speak tiring. Rosa smiled, hiding his smile in the direction of lies, and deceiving Olivia behind a smile. Do not worry about me and rest, Anna advised, while Olivia sat on a neighboring chair and opened her handbag. And then Rosa drew attention to the toilet table and wondered, she didn't touch anything here? Didn't she get rid of her habits? With this question, Anna Rose quietly squinted at Olivia. But just now, the ring Charlene was lost now. Really? No, it cannot be. Anna was horrified in thoughts. However, when I entered the room, it seemed to me that she was hiding something. She continued the thought, dismissing black hair. But if so, with this thought, Anna put her hairpin on the table and declared, I woke up early, so I was a little tired too. Want to take a nap? Olivia clarified. Yes, I'll probably have a rest for 30 minutes. Rosa answered her, rising from a chair. And after that, she went into a secluded corner, where the chair stood. But as soon as she left, Olivia drew attention to the hairpin. It was decorated with precious pebbles, blue, and with a greedy look, Olivia admired their brilliance. Meanwhile, the big wall clock in the ladies' room was already struck by 1/2, announcing time with a quiet ringing. Olivia stumbled, deciding that the ringing would wake the Countess, and quickly turned to her. Countess Victoire? However, to her surprise, and possibly relief, Anna Rose still indulged in sleep, wrapped in a scarlet blanket. Countess, are you sleeping? Just in case, she quietly asked her Olivia. But Anna again did not respond. Then Olivia decided to approach her in order to see for sure. But the next moment, she heard her steps approaching the door. It seems to be a restroom in this side. A girlish voice came behind the door, and Olivia froze, listening to him. Yes, nothing has changed here since last year. The second voice was heard, and then Olivia hurried in a panic. Meanwhile, the ringing of a clock tower was unraveling on the entire estate of the Duke of Sullivan, which announced the beginning of the 5th hour. But Anna Rose did not wake up everything, and smiling nervously with such a luck, Olivia grabbed her handbag and quietly walked away. But as soon as the doors were closed, Anna immediately jumped up from the chair and dropped the blanket from herself, rushed to the table, and having run up, the girl looked around fluently and froze in place, because the hairpin she left disappeared. However, despite the loss, Anna Rose's lips touched a very pleased smile, and in her thoughts she stated triumphantly, expected. And the next moment, 2 ladies entered the room. God, Countess Victoire, so you were here? One of them asked with a smile. I was a little tired and decided to take a nap. What is the time? Anna clarified. The 5th hour is already. The second lady told her that in a hat. Have we disturbed you? The first one caught on, the one without a hat. What do you? Thanks to you, I woke up in time, Rosa reassured. If you think about it, it seems that Miss Marzi has recently been looking for you. The blue-eyed, brown-haired man in a pink dress warned her. Is it true? Then I hurry and go. Anna answered her and returned to the table, while the ladies began to talk peacefully. God, my hairpin! Suddenly the Countess exclaimed, and the blue-eyed lady asked her alarmed. Did something happen? Anna Rose slowly turned to her, and expressing a fright on her face with awkwardness, admitted, My hairpin has disappeared. 2 ladies looked at each other puzzled, and Anna continued, What should I do? This hairpin is a gift from a person dear to me. How does she look like? The blue-eyed lady asked. This hairpin is the size of a palm decorated with sapphires, Rosa answered. God, she must be very expensive. The lady gasped, and her friend added in a hat, You need to find it as soon as possible. All 3 girls took up the active searches of the hairpin, and only one of them knew that these searches would not be successful. Are you sure you have lost the hairpin here? The lady timidly specified. Perhaps you dropped her in the garden? The second suggested. No, she was definitely here when I fell asleep, Anna Rose objected, depicting despair and panic on her face. Then, maybe, it is worth contacting the Duchess of Sullivan? The lady and Anna agreed with her. Yes, it seems that you have to. It would be much easier to attract the third party. In her thoughts, she decided and carefully took the blue-eyed lady by the hands. Lady, thank you for trying to find my hairpin with me. Anna gratefully thanked the girl. I hope you will find her, Countess Victoire. She sincerely wished. With a smile, he bowed with a light blush. I beg you, be witnesses in my game, dear ladies. Anna already wished in her thoughts and smiled with satisfaction. And in order to strengthen trust and arise friendship, Anaros decided to detain a little more in the company of newfound friends. However, for a long time, the conversation could not continue, because from the garden where the guests gathered, a melodic ringing of the bell came. God, what is this? Have you heard that? The blue-eyed lady was surprised, but Anna thought about, recalling what this ringing was. This bell calls when members of the royal family or other honorary guests come. Suddenly she remembered. It looks like this is some important guest, Anna answered, to which the blue-eyed lady enthusiastically rushed her. Let's go. This is a long-standing tradition of the Kantian Circle of Communication, which I learned about from Marcy. Rosa thought, following the ladies. When the organizer of the tea party calls the bell, the guests must stop all their affairs and get together. And through the crowd of guests that had already gathered in the garden, Anna saw how the Duchess of Sullivan returns the bell to the tray. At the same time, Anaros felt the excitement, from which she had a slightly wet forehead, because now she was tormented by the question, who is this? In the list of invited guests that Mr. Langaro showed me, there was no man from the royal family. Anna thought, it seems that everything is here. The Duchess began. First of all, I express my sincere gratitude to everyone who came to our tea party. This alone already overwhelms me with joy. But today, an unexpected guest visited us today. The Duchess of Sullivan announced. Is this the ruler of Kant himself? In surprise, Anna suggested, sincerely lost in conjectures about the personality of the guest. Meanwhile, the Duchess continued. Let me imagine, the blessed and most illustrious land of Westeros. And the next moment, the ducal's voice fell silent for Anna Rosa, like all the sounds of the world around. Because she saw him. This is Prince Zionian, sole mayor, from the royal family of Summerhurst. The Duchess of Sullivan finished represent a secret guest. God, I can't believe, someone whispered in the crowd. We welcome the salt. This happens once in a life, the other shouted, and only Anna was now the sole not here, and not with everyone. Did he come to see me? This is all what she could think about. I said that I would make you not even remember your ex. Suddenly, his words and his touch were remembered, and Anna extended her hand to him, but immediately pulled her and pressed her to her heart. This cannot be. She decided bitterly in her thoughts. He must have come to look at the results that I have achieved. Judged herself with this thought. After all, our relationship is only for the sake of a transaction, she reminded herself, remembering that day. It is foolish to expect something more. It's better to focus on checking, and I will not think about unnecessary things. She decided to herself and sighed heavily. After all, I do not want to disappoint Zionian. And with this thought, Anna decided to return to the guests in order to continue to play her role. True, I also did not expect to see the salt personally. She carefully joined the conversation with a friend of the ladies discussing Zion. He truly deserves to be called a miracle, Anna Lady answered enthusiastically, while Marzi suddenly noticed their company. What's happening? She also joined, to which Anna explained to her with a smile. Sol arrived, and we are talking about him. You're not afraid that he is here? With a cunning grin, she asked the Marquis. No, this is not so, Rosa answered embarrassedly. However, this was not true. She was scared. After all, initially, she was going to raise the noise about the disappearance of the hairpin. However, due to the emergence of salt, this act would become ambiguous. What if I'm just looking for an excuse? She asked a question. Meanwhile, while Anaros was tormented by internal dilemmas, Marcy only now drew attention to her hairstyle. Didn't you tie your hair today? What about your hairpin? The Marquise reasonably asked, and Anna turned to her. I took it off to take a nap, and when I woke up, she disappeared. She was awkwardly admitted, to which the Marquise flashed. What? You say someone stole it? She asked Marcy, so loudly that her question flew to Charlene and her groom, Count Hayden. Something happened, Miss Marcy? The girl was worried about the Marquise. It looks like someone stole a hairpin of dew. How could she get lost? Suddenly, the new acquaintance of Anna approached the new friend. That lady with blue eyes. I heard that before the Countess fell asleep. The hairpin was there. She was definitely stolen, the lady said confidently. Looks like that? Nevertheless, Anna agreed with her, playing out an excitement on her face, and cast a thoughtful gaze of the guests. However, who did it? She voiced the question, loudly enough for him to be heard by all the guests present. Is there really someone so in need of the decoration of the Countess? Immediately crawled questions across the crowd, and these questions reached the ears of Olivia. In addition to the visit of Sul, something else has happened? Yes, the hairpin of Countess Victoire disappeared. God is my Countess! What does it all mean? Olivia realized in an instant, with alarmed look running to Anna and Marzi. However, Anna Rose Victoire met her with a very gaze, and she said in her thoughts triumphantly, I got. Lady Olivia, do you remember the hairpin that was on me? Anna asked, playing excitement and holding Olivia by the hands. Certainly, she confirmed with an awkward smile, but then somehow uncertainly clarified. She was green, right? The dew was waiting for this lies from her, and therefore she pulled away from Olivia and thought out thoughtfully. How strange, Lady Olivia. I remember how I fell asleep while you were in the restroom. The girl continued and withstood a dramatic pause. And when I woke up, I noticed that my hairpin was gone. Anna ended her thought, and Olivia was numb. What? She squeezed out a question, sweating with excitement, and a crowd of guests around was already exploding a homon of crossing. Did Lady Olivia take the hairpin? Could a noble lady from a foreign country do this? But if you listen to Countess Victoire, who else could do this except Lady Olivia? All whispered ladies and gentlemen. But unlike all of them, Anna Rose Victoire knew the truth. She knew that Olivia Winchester was very fond of blue. Most of the things that she lost because of her former relatives were the same blue color. Aquamarine jewelry, heavenly blue dress for tea drinking, even shoes with silk and aquamarine inserts. I did not choose the outfit deliberately for this trap. But what is the coincidence, however, Olivia? Anna thought vindictively. It seems that I also remember that before going to bed, the Countess took off her hairpin. Finally, Olivia spoke again, and everyone was silent. However, immediately after you fell asleep, I left the restroom, and then the hairpin was still there. She assured everyone, Countess, think well. Maybe someone else entered and went out after me? Olivia suggested hintily. When we entered, the hairpin has already disappeared, the blue-eyed lady said. Moreover, when we came in, the Countess still slept. Do you really suspect that it could be us? Boyko, she attacked Olivia and she began to make excuses. And perhaps it would have reached the assault if Anna Rose had not intervened in a quarrel. Lady Olivia, did you leave the room right away? How did I fall asleep? She asked. Certainly. I was worried that I could wake you up. Olivia was indignant. What time was it? Anna continued the interrogation, glancing at the time tower. Somewhere about 5 hours. Olivia answered, Ah, for sure. When I fell asleep, I heard the ringing of the bell. It was just 5 hours, right? Rosa clarified with a smile. God, we also heard this ringing when we were in the corridor at the restroom. The blue-eyed lady agreed with her. Just then, we decided that before continuing, we would take a break for 30 minutes. She continued, thinking. By the time Lady Sophie entered, the hairpin has already disappeared. Suddenly, Anna said, and a handy was heard from the crowd of guests. I guarantee this. Anna Rose Victoire swore, staring directly into the eyes of the stunned Olivia Winchester. My God! Countess Victoire, do you suspect that I am a thief? Olivia was horrified, in shock covering her mouth with her hands. I really could not. You are so cruel to me, Countess. In the end, she burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. Can I say something if you do not mind? Suddenly, the word Charlene took, with excitement in her eyes, going closer to Anna. Olivia is not such a person. In addition, she is more recently in the county of Kant. The bride of the Count for her friend stood up. There may have been some kind of mistake. Please think more. The kind but naive Charlene was sincere. In any case, Lady Charlene, did you not lose any values lately? In a cold tone, Anna asked. Ring. She quietly admitted, and thinking, looked at her friend. Charlene? Olivia was worried, but obviously not for her. First, Lady Charlene ring, now Countess's hairpin. Too many coincidences. Guests were whispered again behind her. No, I really did nothing like that, desperately screamed Olivia Winchester throughout the yard of Sullivan Estates. If you do not believe, you can safely search me. Next, she said, confidently, and with a challenge, with her hands out in front of Anna. I heard at the tea ceremony to be theft. The Duchess of Sullivan intervened in a calm tone. Can I help you with something? The hostess of the estate was worried and gave Anna with Olivia a polite smile. Duchess, could you be my witness? Olivia asked, and the Duchess clarified. In what sense is a witness? I ask you, searched me in order to prove that I did not steal anything. Olivia explained with a prayer, pointing to herself with his hand. Do you want me to search you now? The Countess was slightly confused. Yes, if you do it, everyone will believe, Olivia said. At least let's do it inside, the Duchess suggested, squinting a hinting look at the curious crowd of guests. No, I want to do it here so that my conscience is clean, Olivia insisted, raising her voice so that everyone would hear her. Come on, the Duchess! She rushed, demonstratively spreading her hands in front of the Duchess of Sullivan, which confused her. Fine. The Duchess sighed, still going to concessions, and politely asked Olivia her handbag for examination. The lady's bag is empty. Soon the Duchess declared, and Olivia smiled. And then the Duchess began to examine her dress. There is nothing between the dress and shawl either, she said again after the search. See, I did not steal anything, Olivia said proudly. Can I look, Lady Olivia? Suddenly Anna volunteered. God, do you trust the Duchess? She was indignant at such insolence. It's all right, Countess. Do as you wish. The Duchess of Sullivan calmly answered, to the clearly surprise of Olivia. First, we will start with the inside of the sleeve. Anna decided in her thoughts, personally starting the inspection of Olivia Winchester. The neckline is too deep, but if you put your hand there, she noticed, continuing the search. Well, convinced? She asked Olivia. But the next moment, Anna suddenly squatted before her. What are you doing? Olivia exclaimed, to which Anna answered with a cunning smile. But you wanted to prove your innocence. How far are you ready to go? No matter how much you are looking for, do not climb. Let me go! Olivia began fiercely indignant. But the next moment, Anna hit her garter with her fingers and was scorched in horror. Olivia immediately collapsed to her knees, and in the rained silence, all the guests heard and saw how the ring with turquoise rolled on the marble floor. Wait, this is my ring, Charlene said, raising the mentioned ring from the floor and looking into the face of her friend. Charlene, this is not so. Olivia began to make excuses. Only her voice began to tremble and stutter with excitement. I accidentally found this ring and was going to return it later. She hastily came up with an excuse, finally panicking. But why didn't you say anything? She asked Charlene a reasonable question, which Olivia no longer found a sound answer. You knew that I was looking for a ring, and that Hayden even observed the dress code for his sake, Charlene continued, angry with every word. It seemed strange to me from the very beginning. After your visit to the restroom, my ring unexpectedly disappeared. Wait, do not rush to draw conclusions. I can explain everything. Olivia objected desperately, hastily rising from her knees. I don't think so. Suddenly, Aneros Victor said, stepping forward, and all those present turned her eyes to her. I found something else, besides the ring. What happened to you? And with these words, Anna demonstrated a makeup brush. This is the brush that was on the toilet table in the restroom. The Duchess of Sullivan found an object from her cosmetics. No, I have not stole this brush or whatever it is. I did not take her. This is not true. Literally exploded Olivia indignations. You have not stolen it. The ducal focused on this tiny word and made a voice very cold. So you stole something else, Miss Olivia? The Duchess of Sullivan asked, but without the previous polite smile. I did not steal anything. Do you even know who my brother? Astor Winchester from Northland. Olivia passed from defense into an attack. Why should I steal when the family business flourishes and money is always in the house? She proudly asked, her hands spread. Habit. Suddenly stated, preserving the silence before, Prince Zionian, and turned his eyes in his direction. If I remember correctly, you were sent from your own country because of bad habits, right? Soul specified, putting down a glass of wine. In the sense of expelled? She asked Olivia with a trembling voice, and sweat had already appeared on her pale face. Not at all. Parents recommended that I travel, and I listened to their advice. She objected politely. This is called the expulsion, lady. The adjutant of Langaro, which seemed to arise from nowhere, was courteously corrected. What the groundless rumors! Olivia immediately attacked him, while the adjutant calmly straightened the monocle. I did not touch the things of other people. She continued to prove her innocence, to which Langaro impassively crossed her hands. Instead, did you touch someone else's husband? In a calm tone, the adjutant hinted, and Olivia was numb, like from a slap in the face. Have you heard? How could she do it with a stranger husband? The crowd of guests around her was indignant and dancing with dissatisfaction. Olivia Winchester, you have experienced 3 secular seasons and are still not married. Langaro began to voice her biography. At the same time, rumors arose about your novel with Robin, managing the hippodrome and son-in-law of the Duke Karl Hirschbent, after which you left the country without determining the date of your return. With a smile, the adjutant finished, bowing respectfully. Or am I mistaken in something, Lady Olivia? Langaro specified, looking up at Olivia and looked with his yellow eyes. And Olivia Winchester was stunned not so much from his words as from the vertical pupils that had shone to her for a moment. However, his words acted not only on Olivia, but Anna suddenly remembered the words of her friend from a past life. I am sharing with you because it is you, Letitia. I do not trust men, once Larissa Hirschbent told her. All that I need from them is a worthy genetics that can be conveyed to children, the ash-haired duchess told her, and Letitia Violet then thought about her husband. After all, Robin Armand was a native of a foreign baron family, but he was lucky enough to be chosen by Larissa, the only daughter of the Duke of Hirschbent. She then remembered them together. Although he achieved success exclusively thanks to his appearance, Robin, being simpleton, could not abandon his habits. Are you not worried? Toga Letitia asked. If you are talking about rumors, it suits me. The Duchess calmly answered. My father is one of those people who will do everything for me. Without restraining a smile, Larissa added, dreamily thinking about her. But at that moment, Letitia thought about it. According to her, Karl Hirschbent loved his daughter very much and very hated his son-in-law. For garbage to engage in garbage naturally. She remembered her words. But if this is a person, you should not have business with him. Instead of Robin, he dealt with women who were associated with his son-in-law, and they no longer dared to touch Robin. This is complete madness. Why did Olivia contact the Duke of Hirschbent with the son-in-law? I was horrified in her thoughts by Anaros. How dare you? Meanwhile, Olivia hissed from boiling anger and shame, which alerted Anna, like all guests, it seems that you have a tendency to get hung up on other people's things. This is regrettable. With a polite smile, Langaro answered her. Meanwhile, the Duchess of Sullivan approached Olivia, and from her surprisingly affectionate voice, the girl shuddered. Lady Olivia, I need you to come with me. With the former good smile, the Duchess asked in the company of the maids. Wait, I can explain everything, Olivia began, but the maids immediately grabbed her by the arms. Let me go. You are so bold, although this is not Nordland. In thoughts and with anger, Anna said, watching with a severe look from the side. And while the maids fired the resisting Olivia, the Duchess of Sullivan turned to Anna. There was a misunderstanding. However, our tea ceremony is not over yet. She turned to all the guests present and slammed her hands, and the musicians immediately perked up. We prepared a concert at the garden fountain so that everyone could enjoy a beautiful melody. And when the Duchess of Sullivan finished her speech, Anna returned her brush and she nodded gratefully and then left. Probably this means that she will find my hairpin. In her thoughts, Rosa suggested, watching the Duchess after. It doesn't matter if it is lost, but it was bought with the money of His Highness. In the end, because she belongs to him. However, the girl's sad thoughts suddenly interrupted Langaro, just as suddenly arising behind him that he called out Anna. She was scared to admit, but with a smile turned to him. Excuse me, I probably scared you. The adjutant immediately apologized. Can I help you with something? With a smile joyful from reuniting, the Countess Victoire asked the old friend, and Langaro also smiled joyfully in response to her, and then said, His Highness wants to see you for a moment. The sun in the sky was already turning towards sunset when the adjutant led Anaros to the greenhouse of the estate of the Duke of Sullivan. "I beg you, go through." Lungaro opened the door in front of the girl and let it go inside, and there Prince Zionian was already waiting for her. "Your Highness is glad to see you." Anna greeted him, bowing respectfully, to which Sol rose from the couch. "What did you think about then?" He asked a question, suddenly getting close to her closely and taking the girl by the chin. "As soon as you reveal yourself, your value will be insignificant," Zion reminded, slightly clenching his cheeks with her fingers. "Based on the circumstances, you acted quite recklessly," he continued, softening his tone and straightening up. "I'm sorry." All that Anna could answer him now, shavingly closing her eyes from him and bursting with a blush. "I don't know if you believe it, but I didn't want to. I will be careful, and henceforth will not repeat such a mistake." She swore. "And you are more talented than I thought." Suddenly, Zionian praised, affectionately stubborn her chin, and Anna looked into his eyes. Manner, behavior, emphasis, everything was impeccable. Sol continued to give her praise, recalling recent events. "Let your last actions be extremely dangerous, but I will accept it." In the end, he did not restrain his reproach and pulled away. "Even faced with the enemy, you did not hesitate." With these words, Zionian returned to the sofa, leaning back in his back. "Your Highness, did you know? The fact that Olivia will visit today's event." Anna dared to ask her a question tormenting her. Even if he knew, will it change something? Zionian answered her with a question to the question, straightening up on the couch. "This was the reason why I was supposed to attend the Duchess' tea ceremony." Anna guessed in her thoughts. His Highness wanted to check Anaros, and at the same time see if Letitia can overcome his past. What would you do if Olivia did not have stolen? The sudden question of the prince returned the girl to the present. Olivia did not lie only once. She did not steal a brush, Rosa admitted, recalling the crushed face of the offender. "In fact, I took her. I needed to prepare the soil so that Olivia could not get out of the water." "It turns out that your plan was more difficult than I thought, Anaros." With a satisfied smile, Zionian praised her. "But why did you help me?" Anna announced another question tormenting her, and, from excitement, took herself by the elbows. And there was a tense silence between them, which continued until Zion leaned forward and said, "Why did you help? If a glass on the table is as if he is about to fall, will you not retire it?" With a grin, he answered with a mystery, "I am really like a chess horse for him." Anaros admitted to herself in her thoughts, dropping her eyes with sadness. "I knew this, so what I hoped for?" She began to torment herself with a question, and tormenting his memories of their first night. Again, this look. Zionian dug in displeasure, thereby returning Anna to the present, and she asked bewilderedly, "What?" "Excuse me, Your Highness, I don't understand what." Anna began to make excuses, but fell silent when Zion took her hand. "A look that was bored, and wished me," he explained, pulling Anaros and putting him on his knees. He enclosed in a hug. "I remembered how you, pressed by me to bed, resisted and cried with disgust." He continued, stroking her back. "So tell this," he said slyly, pressing the girl to him harder, so that she had to bow to his face. And Anaros closed her eyes and whispered what he wanted to hear, and she wanted to say herself. "I missed you. Didn't you share with me coziness and calmness that I have not felt for so long?" she asked quietly in his hands. "It was a year ago." Zion calmly answered her, and then she asked again, "What was it for you, Your Highness?" "Do you want to hear that I missed you too?" Prince Zionian guessed, and smiled modestly, only with the corners of his lips. But Anna said nothing more, embarrassedly looking away, and then Zionian sighed wearily. "You are very annoying." And the next moment, he sharply laid Anna under himself, which frightened the girl and immediately hung over her, resting his hands on the sofa. "Despite the fact that you are so desperately eager for attention, but you are scared when they show it to you," Solly said Sol. "So why should I miss you, if I always can hold you in my hands?" From these words, Anna froze under him. "You can do this with any woman you wish." "I'm simple." She began to make excuses again, but Sol stopped her. "Just," he repeated this word, and then gathering his gaze, Anna admitted, "I thought you were hugging me out of pity." "Letitia!" Suddenly, he whispered affectionately her native name, and with a smile clung to her ear. You think too much. It fills your head so much that it pours through the mouth. He doused her skin with hot breath and bit his lobe. I can't say that I missed you as much as you. With these words, he pressed her hands into the sofa. But I really missed. I missed your eyes, similar to Violet's, and in a miserable expression, you just have to press you to something. Therefore, it was time to abandon the hatred of himself, which became a habit. Having said this, he again put her on himself. What if it's hard to do? Anaros asked quietly, all red from the heat and desire, gently stroking his face. Then there is only one thing left that I can do for you. Zion answered vaguely, smoothly slipping his hand under her skirt. I will bring you until your head is devastated. He promised and seized her neck with a kiss. You missed this, Anaros? With a smile, he asked the one to whom he gave this name and smoothly pulled off her dress. The next morning began with clear weather outside the window, and also from the back of sipping and a sweet yawn. Why am I repeating it again and again? Anna turned to herself with a question, lying in her bed, in her chambers. Zionian should neither touch me nor contact me at all. She decided to herself, rising in bed. It's better not to think about it anymore. And on this thought, Anaros got out of bed, welcoming the sun outside the window. I understand that everything will return to its place as soon as the deal is completed. She thought sadly, going to the table. But as soon as she took her a bug, as Marzi immediately burst into her chambers. What is this sound? Rosa, are you okay? In full. With an awkward smile, Rosa reassured her. In full? Just look at yourself? The Marquise objected. In one day, almost spoil all the work. She complained annoyingly, examining her friend with a critical look. Come on, clean do. Marzi suddenly became very serious. What do you mean, Marzi? Sincerely did not understand the do. His Highness, he scolded you very much? The Marquise asked excitedly, and Anna was amazed at this issue. Scolded me? Yes! Otherwise, why did he hold you all day? Marzi flared up. Isn't he locked you in the room, in punishment? Well, he really scolded me a little, Anna confusedly admitted, bursting with a blush, which surprised the Marquis. You know that I am on your side even if His Highness is dissatisfied with you? Having said this, Marzi sat down at the table. This woman, Olivia Winchester, is not at all familiar with the concept of honor. She changed her subject, which interested Anna. Outwardly, she pretends to be good and sweet, but inside, she is vile and petty. She continued Marzi, propping her chin with her hand. Yesterday, the Duchess of Sullivan took Olivia with her. What will happen to her now? Anna asked, taking a cup of tea in her hand. Well, maybe you will tell me? With a smile, Marzi hinted, folding her fingers with a house, and Anna began her answer. According to Kant's traditions, only the prince can issue a decree on its exile, but such a small thief does not interest him. By law, the thief is obliged to pay a triple amount from the one that stole. So Olivia will have to pay greater compensation. Having finished with the answer, Anna calmly drank tea while Marzi began to praise her. As expected from my best student. By the way, Marzi, did I go through your test? Anna asked carefully, as if embarrassed by this question, and set aside the mug. Your exam has not ended yet, do? With a smile, the Marquise answered her, which surprised her friend, and she asked in confusion. What? Mr. Langaro will tell you about the next test. He is waiting below, so let's go down. She suggested Marzi, and having changed clothes, Anna went down to the first floor, where the adjutant really expected her. Mr. Langaro, she called him. Good morning, lady. You are beautiful as water lily. With compliments and a smile, her adjutant of the prince greeted her. Thank you for the compliment. Anaros thanked him, clearly embarrassed, and answered with the same embarrassed smile. And the next test? She timidly began her question, but Mr. Langaro already understood everything and politely stopped her. Perhaps we will sit down first, he suggested. Before I talk about the test, I would like to tell you something else. After a night interrogation, Olivia admitted everything. With these words, the adjutant laid a stolen hairpin on the table. Although she admitted that she touched the hairpin and stole the ring, she insisted that she did not take the brush. Therefore, the Duchess of Sullivan was so angry that she sent Olivia to imprisonment. He finished the story on this Langaro. This is so shameful, I said Anaros, but with an echoed sympathy to the former sinking, and therefore she looked down. However, then she revived and asked Langaro, a curious question for herself. By the way, where did she hide the hairpin? About this lady. The adjutant hesitated suspiciously, gliding into a fist, and looked away from awkwardness. Do not worry, I thoroughly washed it before returning to you, he assured Anna, and she was taken aback from this farce and embarrassment. Please take it too. The adjutant deftly translated the topic, putting case in front of Anaros with a smile. And in that case, Anaros discovered a handbag and a fan belonging to Olivia, to her amazement. What? Where did you get it from? Look at it as alternative compensation, Langaro explained to her, while the girl was looking at her handbag in her hands. I was always only taken away from me, she thought sadly. Therefore, do not even believe that they returned to me what belongs to me. Or do you want monetary compensation? He specified Langaro what Anna reassured him to. Number this thing is very important for me. Thank you very much, Mr. Langaro. She thanked. But as it turned out, the adjutant did not think to end. This is not all that I want to give to you. And with these words, he laid a blue envelope on the table, decorated with a white ribbon. And by opening it, Anna discovered an invitation addressed to her, Anaros Victuer, and reporting the lunar ball. Moon ball, she thought. On the day when the moon rises brightly in the year, a masquerade ball is held in the coastal temple. This is an event when people hide their faces and treat each other as equal to believers worshipping the god of the sea. They dance all night, praying to calm the storms next year. And according to tradition, two are always invited. I invited me to the ball. Anna smiled and thought to herself, now the nobleman Kant was really recognized in me. This time the test conditions are the same. He warned Langaro, erecting a finger. Do not let anyone guess that you are a foreigner. Because of the masks, you will have to focus only on the speech and behavior of the partner. But I'm sure the lady will cope. Then Langaro smiled amiably, smiling slightly confused by Anna, and added, after all, you have passed the first test. By the way, you probably already heard the news from Miss Marzi. He replaced the subject again, but Anna was not aware of the news. His Highness plans to temporarily settle in the residence of the Marquis de Baudran. The adjutant told, and Dew was surprised by the news. God, Miss Marzi didn't tell you? Langaro guessed, and Anna awkwardly answered him. Yes, we were a little confused. It's okay, immediately reassured her adjutant. Initially, he planned to stop at the Duke of Sullivan, but changed his mind. As you know the lady, His Highness is not the easiest person. Langaro hinted with a smile, and Anna embarrassedly agreed. I can't believe that we will live together with His Highness, she thought, picking up an invitation to the ball. Such a feeling, as if they would evaluate me every minute. But in any case, does he stay here because of me? Dreamily reading Anna's invitation, and did not notice how she burst into a blush, but the next moment they knocked on the door. I heard that Mr. Langaro was guest and came to greet him. From the threshold, the Marquis Edgar Baudran said, Did you manage to happen? He specified, approaching closer. I had a message for Miss Anaros. Langaro answered him. The time comes for the lunar ball. The Brand de Baudran guessed, noticing an invitation letter in Anna's hands. Marzi and I were also invited. With a smile, he boasted, leaning towards Dew, and the adjutant noticed something between them. By the way, with whom is your excellency going to go to the lunar ball? Langaro was curious, looking at Edgar with a squint. Who am I going to go with? He asked embarrassedly, stuttering slightly with excitement, and suddenly burst into a blush. Well, I, as usual, will go in a carriage with Marzi. The Marquis finally answered, spying on Anna's invitation. If so, your partner. With a smile, Langaro was about to volunteer, but Edgar stopped him. Do not happen to this. Somehow you are too fast. The adjutant continued to make fun of the Marquis, and he answered, Didn't you go too far? The day was in the evening, when Marzi and Anaros returned to the Baudran estate from a walk while going to the rain. Do stop losing weight. Your size is constantly changing, the Marquis complained, brushing an umbrella from the water. This does not depend. In embarrassment, Anna answered her, knowing the genuine reason in the person of stress and experiences. It seems that you were unhealthy at breakfast. Maybe this is this? Marzi suggested, looking thoughtfully at her friend. Good night, Marzi. We worked hard. Anaros wished her, kissing the marquise in her forehead. Sweet dreams do, Marzi answered, and her friends said goodbye to that. And soon Anna was again in her chambers. Meanwhile, the maids have already delivered today's purchases to her room, and Dew made one of them on the table. I could not ignore the advice of Marzi, and chose it. With this thought, she opened a box with a luxurious pink dress. However, it looks like I put on my wedding. With sadness, Anna noticed, not so joyfully looking at the dress. Interestingly, having entered into a second marriage with Lianka, Aster will go along the same path again? She thought, looking out the window. I don't think I can fall asleep. Anaros decided aloud, and without looking at the dress, closed the box. Then she changed into a nightshirt, and when she headed for her bed, she noticed a box of wine on the table. Near the box, he was already standing, by someone a kindly provided glass, and next to him a note with only 2 words. Marcy Bodrin. Thank you! Anna thanked her friend. Then she poured wine into a glass, and crouching on a chair, drank it with pleasure. You seem to be enjoying. Suddenly, Zionian's voice came behind, caught Anaros by surprise. Your Highness? Anna turned sharply. It looks like you never got rid of your habit, Sol said annoyingly. It was a mistake to entrust you with the Marquis Bodrin, engaged in the production of alcohol, he said, taking a bottle of wine in his hand. Sit down. It was not enough for you to fall and damage something, Prince Zionian advised, looking from a bottle to Dew. Yes. Anaros answered him quietly, but the prince did not notice the lethargy in her speech, as he did not notice that the girl suddenly led back. Anna wanted to lean on the table, but that scraped from the edge and scaredly screaming, the girl collapsed to the floor. Crap! Zion cursed, rushing to her aid, and carefully lifted the girl from the floor. Dew, open your eyes! How are you? The prince asked excitedly. The head is spinning a bit, Anna admitted, either from a drink or from a fall. I told you to sit down and you decided to break your head? Is this a protest? Sol was indignant, lifting the girl to his feet. What is the end of you to drink, or die? From these words, Anna shamefully lowered her gaze, like a guilty child. This life had to end for a long time, but this body is moving from a sense of resentment. She said quietly, I was lucky to meet His Highness and survive, but my heart was broken when they hit me with a knife. I tried to glue it for revenge with the last forces, but this crack creaks as if it would explode at any moment. Anaros looked up on the table with a donated bottle of wine and added, Therefore, sometimes a crack needs a lubrication. However, I will not allow alcohol to destroy your work, she said firmly. Therefore, I immediately pick up myself, Anna Smola, telling the prince everything that was in her soul and everything that the wine gave the courage. However, Sol thought about the answer. To be honest, I have never been in a similar situation, so I don't understand you, he admitted, and Anna looked into his eyes. However, in theory, this is familiar to me. Unlike weak people who look away, you tried, Anaros Victoire. So much so that this impressed even on strict Bodrin. Sol told her everything, hiding his hands in his pants pockets. Therefore, I have no doubt in your true intentions. From these words, Anna looked at the prince, as if she recognized him again. Even if you close your eyes when you are scared, it will be the best that you can do. He finished Sol and immediately fell silent. Anna did not know how much time they spent in silence, until Zion himself violated it. Now come back to the bed. The prince turned away from Anna and already set out to leave her chambers, when she suddenly took up the edge of his shirt. I don't want you to leave, Anaros whispered, and Zion turned to her with a question. What? Haven't sobered up yet? I want to say. Anna hesitated, but she found the courage to ask a question. Could you cut me off? Despite the evening spoiled by the rain, the morning of the next day met the inhabitants of the estate cheerful weather outside the window. The rays of the sun penetrated the chambers of the Anaros through the non-hiding window and gently stroked the girl sleeping in the arms of Zionian. Anna opened her eyes, starting to wake up, but Zion gently stroked her face and asked to sleep a little more. Thank you for accepting my rudeness. Anna thanked him. Thanks to this, For the first time in a long time, I slept calmly. Am I like sleeping pills for you? Suddenly, Saul was indignant, rising sharply from bed, which made the Dew was at a loss. How could I? How can a servant relate to his owner? She swore, but Sewell froze from her words and thought. And then the prince silently began to dress, and Anna dared to ask, Did I do something wrong? And he answered her, I did it. And after the prince simply left the room, and leaving the one, bewildered by Anaros, in bed and with a pile of questions. At the corridor, Zion wandered darker than the clouds, and at that moment he crossed with his adjutant. Good morning, Your Highness. However, Sol did not answer the greeting, and Langara was worried. Did something happen? And only then did the prince abandon. Everything is fine. The adjutant realized that everything was not good, but nevertheless he asked, What you told me to prepare is still in force. The day quickly approached that very bright night, in the year, and under its starry sky, the white walls of the temple towered. Dew, will you honor me to be my partner on the moonlight? Edgar bowed, politely offering Dew his hand. The Marquise stood in front of her, hiding her face behind the mask. But Anna could recognize him by her hair and touched, answered, Certainly. I apologize, but Dew already has a partner. With a malicious smile, the dressed-up by Marzi said, wedging between them, In any case, let's go soon. And you, Edgar, as always, can go to the ball with me, continued the Marquise. I do not think that on this day it was necessary to do as always. The Marquise was indignant, to which Marzi childishly showed him his tongue. Then good luck, Anaros. Edgar returned to Anna and wished her. I wish you to fully spend time on this moonlit night. Marzi, who is my partner? Rosa asked, while the Marquise led her hand. This is a secret. With a cunning smile, she said, but soon the friends stopped in front of the fountain and turned around. Marzi asked, Are you ready? Did you take my mask? And before answering her with a simple word, yes, Anna hid her beautiful face behind an equally beautiful white mask. You can do it, just do what is usually. She advised the Marquis, encouragingly putting her palms on her shoulders. And then everyone will definitely like you. With a fervent smile, Marzi winked and Anna infected her optimism. Wait, here. Your partner will come soon. Good luck, Dew. In parting, the Marquis wished. Masha Dew with her hand and left. Who is my partner? Rosa thought, leaning against the column. Since this is the second test, maybe it will be Langaro. Again, this is a thoughtful expression. Suddenly, a familiar voice came, and Anaros turned towards its owner. Your Highness, Zionian? Why are you here? The girl was surprised while Prince Zion slowly approached her. Isn't I good enough for a partner? He answered the question to the question, looking at Anna through the slots of the black mask. No, this is not so. Anna tried to apologize for the rude question, squeezing her wrist from embarrassment, and because the prince approached. Is it so important that he came? In her thoughts, she asked a question, hiding a confused look from Zion. Take it! Suddenly the prince said, and Anaros looked up at him and saw that Sol was offering her hand, and hesitating only for a moment from the memories about how this day began. Anna accepted Zionian's hand. Your dress is quite acceptable. Sol compliment, taking the girl's arm, and she asked, Is it true? Does this mean that I'm your taste? Following Anna was asked a frivolous question, not counting on a serious answer. However, when they had already approached the front door of the temple, Zion smiled slyly and gave her an answer. Maybe. What? Anna was amazed, but the next moment the doors opened in front of her, and from what she saw, she forgot about everything in the world. Inside, the coastal temple turned out to be a fabulous palace in which elegant and mysterious characters in masks live. And here is your tool. With these words, Sol suggested Anna a glass of wine, to which she asked, Do you not wake up? I don't drink. The prince answered dryly, which again surprised Anna, and accepting a glass from him, she asked again, You don't drink? At all? Even a little? Even one sip? She continued to ask everything while Sol took up the applied snack. But having not received an answer from him, Rosa thought, He says that he does not drink, but he offered me the best of the local wines. In fact, before meeting with you, I drank almost every day. Suddenly, she decided to admit the prince in her shortcomings. I could not bear what was happening on a sober head. Intoxication comes instantly. However, after that, it's hard for me to get drunk. You say that you drink well, and you yourself fall after the first bottle. With a grin, Zion reminded, covering her glass with his palm. This is not because of alcohol, Anna reassured him, but Sul did not remain in debt. Are you not going to say that it is because of me? For me, your highness is stronger than any alcohol, Anaros timidly admitted, embarrassedly looking down. She did not see the prince's face stretched out of the words heard, and then Zion suddenly burst into a loud laugh at the whole temple. That's all, he said through laughter and not paying attention to curious glances, set the glass of Anna on the table. Your dance skills should be no worse than Kant's emphasis. He changed his subject, hintily pointing his hand to the center of the hall. Then Zionian again offered Anaros a hand, and she answered, taking his hand without the previous timidity and embarrassment. You can check it for yourself, your highness, Anna suggested, giving the prince a bright smile like today's moon. And soon, in addition to music, the temple was filled with whispers of guests. This couple dances so beautifully. Who is this? I see them for the first time. Look at the man. He is like a blinding sun. These words reached Anna, and she agreed with their comparison. Zion seemed to blind and dissolve the world around her, and dancing with him. In his hands, she could not hold back a joyful smile. You have a test, and you laugh? Sol reminded, and Anna answered, I dance with a beautiful man. There is no reason not to have fun. Well, how do you? My dance skills. She was curious, bursting with a light blush, to which the prince smiled. Not bad. Zionian gave his modest answer, graduating from the dance and gently attracting a happy Anaros to him. But before the prince continued, the girl's eyes involuntarily caught on the man in black, which he pronounced a toast with a glass. And looking at him, Anna was horrified, because even at a distance, even under the mask, she recognized Astor Winchester. Why is he here? She asked in her thoughts, pressing her whole trembling body against Zion and hiding a frightened face on his chest. What is the matter with you? Immediately worried the prince, but Anna did not tell him the truth. You don't mind rest a little? Fine. Zionian answered and released Anaros's hand, allowing her to leave, but he escorted the girl with a long gaze. Meanwhile, Anaros retired from the music and society of guests, climbing the second floor to a huge window. If I will stand here a little more, then I will not encounter him? Anna asked Hope with hope, finally drooping. And having gone into herself, she did not notice how someone approached her from the back, and then rudely and suddenly grabbed her hand. From surprise, Anna was afraid, but she became worse when she was sharply deployed, and she saw Astor in front of her. It took him only a second in order to tear off the mask from her, and Anna froze under his gaze, studying gaze. However, this scene attracted the attention of many guests. Is this Countess Victoire? Cousina Miss Marzi? And who is this man with her? It seems that we have not seen him here before. The guests continued to whisper, and Astor seemed to regret their inquisitive attention. Yes, how could he take a mask from her so boldly? One of the guests was indignant, and Astor looked at his hand with the mask of the Countess. What kind of disrespect do you allow yourself? Anna was already indignant, moving away from the shock and gaining courage in front of her ex-husband. However, Astor did not respond to indignation, only shamefully looked away. And then Anna thought, did he recognize me? With the help of his strength, Sul changed my appearance, but did not change his eyes. You need to stay calm. Everything will be fine. I don't know who you are, but could you return my mask? Anna politely asked, coping with excitement and fear. Forgive me. I stopped you because I thought I knew you, Astor explained, returning the girl a mask. He does not remember that he ran into me in the port? Anaros was surprised in her thoughts, impassively returning the mask to his face. Well, in the end, he engaged in Lianka. Of course, that he does not remember other women, she concluded, and suddenly, from the first floor, where the main hall was located, a familiar melody came to it. This is a waltz, Rosa said. Lady, let me apologize for the disrespect shown. Astor turned to her with a bow, offering his hand. And if possible, explain the reason. He added through the slots of the black mask. Anna examined the guilt in his eyes. Is this also a test of his highness? She thought. looking down and recalling the events of the floral ceremony. If everything is so, then this is already too much. In her thoughts, the former Letitia Violet decided, taking the hand of her ex-husband. "You dance well," Astor praised, circling with a girl in a dance. "The man whom I knew also danced very well. I suppose this person is the one with whom you confused me?" Anna suggested, and in her soul already knowing what the answer will be. "The truth is that the lady is very similar to my wife," Astor admitted, and from his words, Anna felt how blood froze in the veins. "Looks like her?" The dew was struck in her thoughts, and answered aloud. "This is not quite what a woman would like to hear from a man. There is nothing to do with the eyes," she stated in her thoughts, but asked aloud. "Was she just as beautiful?" "What do you?" With a smile, Astor extended, smoothly leading Anaros in a dance. "She was not as bright and sophisticated as a lady. I can't understand why I was so mistaken," he answered, sincerely believing that lady compliment and not noticing her gaze. "And good," because Anna's gaze was piercing. "I'm sorry that she was not so dim," she answered in her thoughts. "You can't ask anything?" Astor asked, and Anna answered. "And should? The foreigner I see for the first time? Have you noticed that I am a foreigner?" Astor was surprised. "I judge by accent," Anna answered. "Are you from Northland? What brought you can't?" "A small family question," Astor admitted. Looking down, and Anna understood. "He is here to pay Olivia's compensation. I suppose he still does not know that Countess Victoire is involved in this." Anna thought vengefully, squinting at Astor. "If you do not mind, can you name your name?" Suddenly Astor asked. Then to admit slightly, Anna was slightly excited. "Is the charm of a masquerade ball not that we do not know anything about each other?" In a calm tone, she reminded. "Why don't we remember each other as a good memory of the lunar ball?" Next, she proposed do, having left the answer. "I asked about the name, not out of dirty intentions," Astor assured, and was even slightly indignant. "I'm already engaged. How would I dare? Already acquired a new bride after his ex-wife?" Anna hinted at his engagement ring. "You are a happy person." "I think so too," Astor agreed with a smile. "I feel my eyes finally cleared after meeting with the bride." "Oh, God! Gentlemen, these words would very upset your spouse," Anna told him with a sly smile. And then she graduated from the dance, and without saying anything to her ex-husband, politely bowed to him as a sign of farewell. "Now I am sure that I have passed the test." Countess Victoire in her thoughts, turning away from Astor, confidently stated. However, Anna was only a couple of steps. Astor suddenly called her. "I beg you, wait a minute." Anna Rose stopped, not knowing why, and slightly turned to Astor over her shoulder, showing interest. "We talked about my bride." Astor reminded and paused, as if gathering in spirit. "I need your help. My bride plans to visit Kant, but I will have to leave on business." He continued to explain himself, approaching Anna. "I also visited today's ball on business issues." Astor admitted and turned around. Anna answered, "That's how, it's clear. Judging by today's atmosphere, Kant is not much different from my homeland," Astor concluded, slightly grimacing. "However, I still worry about my bride." The Marquis Winchester admitted, helplessly looking down. "She is a soft person. I'm not sure that I can leave her alone in a foreign country." He finished Astor with a revelation and calmed down. "Are you asking me to become a friend to her here?" Anaros suggested, but purely out of politeness and curiosity. "How can I expect this from the one with whom it is not familiar?" Astor answered her with a smile, returning her words to the Countess. "But since you are from Kant, you may be able to give her some tips. She needs someone who will be her guide. It would be great if you recommended someone with a worthy reputation." He finished Astor to express his request. "God, probably your bride is still very young," Anna suggested, disguising the mockery of Astor under emotion. "Is she 7 years old?" Anaros Victoire asked with a smile, barely restraining a torn laugh in herself. "My bride is adult," Astor assured, but coldly, clicking the words through a barely noticeable, irritated grin. "However, since she is naive, pure, and does not know much about the world, I just would like someone to help her. Really, despite the fact that your bride is adult, she still needs a guardian." Again, Anna was amazingly amazed. Does she really suffer from some kind of internal disease? She thoughtfully suggested, to which Aster pursed her lips. I am just worried about my bride, he objected. She can make a mistake without knowing the customs of another country. This is true. If not careful, you can easily make a mistake. Anaros, with the words of her ex-husband, agreed with a smile. So we can say, judging by the thefts that have been at recently, right? She hinted, crossing her hands on her chest. Since Kant is a business country, the punishment for theft is rather strict. From these words, Aster shamefully lowered his eyes. I wonder what happened to that foreigner who wished to assign someone else's property. Anna reminded of the latest events. Even a 6-year-old child in Kant would not have done this. In the end, she humiliated Olivia, which wound Aster. However, despite all her words, to the honor of Aster, he retained his face and said, I ask you to answer my request. Anaros turned away, thoughtfully examining the guests, and suddenly offered him. Then what about that person? Aster looked in the same direction, and Rosa explained to him. There is that gentleman with red hair and dark skin. He is the head of the clan Baudrin, Marquis de Baudrin, the oldest and most noble Kant family. The girl of Edgar introduced. He also has a younger sister, so he gets along well with the girls. Anna smiled, noticing how Aster was alert. I am sure he is good to take care of your bride. Anaros assured him, continuing her small mockery. Sorry, but I would like someone the same gender. Men are not suitable, Aster answered, which surprised the Countess. What? And what does the floor have to do with friendship? She asked, depicting sincere misunderstanding, and Aster was noticeably embarrassed. But if you think about it, you are from Northland, emergently answered Anaros to her own question, as if explaining everything. Of course, I heard that the northern continent is conservative, but, my God. The Countess played shock and light horror. Then Aster turned away and looked around the guests, stopped at the red-haired lady talking to a certain gentleman. What about her? He asked. Anna answered. This is the Marquise Baudrin, the sister of the gentleman that I advised you. Then why didn't you recommend it to the rhinestone? Aster was surprised. But the next moment, the Marquise gave her satellite a slap in the face. Aster and Anna immediately froze from such an embarrassment. Sorry, I think I understand. Aster apologized. This is nonsense, Anna answered. Excuse me, but so hasty to advise someone is quite difficult. She continued. In Kant, it is not customary to take care of someone. Isn't it natural to take care of yourself when you become an adult? Anna asked, bowing to goodbye. However, when the Countess turned and was about to leave, Aster suddenly held her hand. Sorry, lady. No matter how much I think about it, I think that there is no better than you. He confidently declared the confused Anna. I am not so shameless as to count on great mercy, and I will definitely repay you properly. However, in response to his promises, Countess Victoire said with a smile, If you say that, then I cannot help you. Such was her final word, and no longer daring to hold the Countess, Aster released her hand and bowed respectfully. Without even knowing who I am, you trust me with Lianka? You are still selfish, Anna thought, walking along the night beach. And what only made me tremble in fear of him? The Dew was mentally surprised with a satisfied smile on her face. Although perhaps this request will become the cornerstone of my revenge, she suggested, sitting on a coastal stone. But suddenly, Dew noticed the presence of an old acquaintance that she showed his ears from the shadows of coastal rocks and stones. What are you doing here? Anna asked, surprised. But in response, the cat was expected only just meowed and trotted to her. Where is your master? Anna asked again, when the cat deftly jumped to her knees, and he again said nothing. Isn't that a cat belonging to the Duchess of Sullivan? The Dew thought about stroking a cat, and declared aloud, You are such a cutie. Thank you, now I feel better. She thanked an unexpected friend, and taking him in her arms, kissed her heading. But the next moment, the cat seemed to hit with lightning. To Anna's surprise, he suddenly slipped out of her hands and rushed away. I confused him so much that he ran away. Anna was puzzled, looking in amazement after, hiding among the stones, a cat. Could she know that soon this cat would get off at the Bodrinus estate, and in the middle of the night would scrape at someone's doors? After a while, meowing with a scratching door had an effect, and the owner of the chambers opened the door with a question. Whose cat is this? And how long have you been going to be in this absurd form? Zionian asked the following question, letting the guest into the chambers. And how can it be so disrespectful about such a capable subordinate as me? Suddenly, the cat answered a question with a question. After all, from my transformation you get only benefits. Langaro reminded his master, pulling his clothes on himself. Work is work, even if it is espionage. I'm dear. With a smile, the adjutant said, You are strange. Sol answered him, Strange? Please take my words back. Langaro was not seriously indignant, hiding the trace of lipstick on his forehead from the prince. So she cried again? Zion asked, not paying attention to the adjutant, but concentrating on the book in his hand. Did you cry? Langaro asked in surprise and thought. Of course, she looked a little sad, but did not cry. To his answer, Sul silently crossed his hands on his chest, and then the adjutant hinted, Our my lady, worthy of praise, right? Are you having fun with the girls somewhere? The prince translated the topic, finally noting the wrapper of the lipstick on the forehead of his adjutant. Contrary to expectations, my lady loves animals. Blaming himself with a blush, Langaro admitted, embarrassedly, touching his hand to his forehead. Enough of these useless speeches. At least tell about the results of the exam. Strictly demanded Sol, starting to lose patience. Milady perfectly mastered Kant's dance, and she was not very worried about the appearance of Astor Winchester. Langaro answered with a smile. It made him be confused. Anyway, the adjutant continued to tell everything, but Sul no longer heard him. The next day, the prince called Anna to his chambers, and she awkwardly asked when she went. You called, Your Highness? Yes. Sol simply and dryly answered her, returning to her breakfast. And then Anna thought, why did he get up so early? Maybe he wants to talk about what happened at the moonlight, she suggested, sitting down at the prince's table, or about the result of the exam. She continued to reason, watching how the prince continues to be silently fidden. I prefer dogs instead of cats. Suddenly, Zionian stated calmly, caught Anna by surprise with this information. What? She asked reasonably, sincerely not understanding the meaning of this topic, while Sul still calmly continued to have breakfast. This question mark, what are you talking about? Anna rephrased the question of what Zionian asked another. And who do you like more? I like cats more, she admitted, and then clarified. Is this an exam too? To which Sul suddenly got up from the table. Of course not. He answered on the move and retired, leaving Anna to guess. Why did he suddenly begin to ask about something specific? Then she looked at her watch and specified the maid. How much time is it left before the first ship arrives in the port? If you take the carriage immediately after breakfast, you will have to meet the first ship. The maid answered respectfully. Are you waiting for a specific ship? She dared to clarify what Anaros simply smiled at. Morning in the port of Kant always began not from the sun, but from the first arriving ship. Just like now, a cool wind blew from the sea, which is why Anna was dressed in warmer, and as the maid said, she managed to just at the arrival. That ship! The vine floats on it. In her thoughts, she concluded Anaros, admiring how the sailboat was already mooring in the port. However, when the ship began to leave the passengers, Anna realized, strange. Why don't I see Lianka? This is exactly the time and the name of the ship spoke about Astor, she thought, approaching the captain of the port. Sorry to bother. Can I ask you about something? She turned to the captain, and he answered, How can I help? I would like to check if there is a Lianka Snowwizard name on the passenger lists. Anna explained her request. Are you talking about a lady from the genus Snowwizard? The captain specified, not being distracted from a careful check of the list of passengers. If you are talking about her, then she canceled her ticket shortly before landing. The captain answered, and Anna was dumbfounded from his words. Do you accidentally know the reason? She clarified the countess, moving away from the shock. But the captain answered her. I'm sorry, but I'm not in the know. Is it not because the gentlemen from the aristocracy are always picky? The captain added. But Anna did not listen to him anymore. All her thoughts were now about Lianka Snowwizard. So she did not come? And she didn't even say when she arrived next time. Should I meet Astor again? She continued to reflect on solving a sudden problem. But suddenly, a man in a black cloak passed behind her. Anna noticed him only out of the corner of her eye, and therefore turned after him. And the former Letitia Violet seemed very familiar to his dark blue hair and painfully pale skin. Wait, these are the butler of the Snoweiser families. His name, Mikkel. Suddenly, she remembered this unpleasant man. Why would he arrive here without a stingy? Anaros asked a reasonable question, clenching the edge of a coat in her hands. If I will follow him, will I find out anything? She fought with doubts, while Mikkel moved further and further. And then Anaros finally decided and rushed after Mikkel in pursuit when the butler had already disappeared around the corner. However, after following him, Anna suddenly ran into the port trading, and Mikkel himself seemed to dissolve in the air. However, he soon again showed himself, heading already in the other direction, while Anna greeted the saleswoman. Thank God that this is the residence of the residents, so that they will not suspect me of anything, Rosa thought, restoring the surveillance, and soon she ended at the entrance to one quite popular cafe, which Anna and Marzi were visited more than once. However, before led to Mikkel inside, Anna ran into the nearest clothing store and bought herself a hat. And so, having disguised himself, Anaros went through the glass doors of the cafe and ended up in his spacious lobby. Looking around, Anna almost immediately discovered Michel, that he was sitting at the farthest table by the window. The Countess decided to take the table behind the butler in order to eavesdrop on him and ordered one dessert for the species. At this distance, they will definitely not notice me. In her thoughts, she decided, while the figure in a hood and a cloak sat down at Mikkel. They promised that they would bring her here. Suddenly, the figure in the hood shouted angrily, and Anna, to her surprise, recognized her voice. Neither Lianka nor that person. Michelle's interlocutor continued, and her voice trembled with despair and beginning hysteria. Why are you here instead of them? She asked the girl in a hood, and raising her head, showed herself like Olivia Winchester. Why is there Olivia? In shock, Anna asked the question. She should be under arrest due to theft in tea party. But what is more important? What kind of volume she talks about? With this thought, Anaros cautiously turned around and pricked up her ears. I'm sorry, Lady Olivia, Michelle spoke. My mistress had an urgent business, so she could not come. But I will be as her representative, so you can talk to me what you want, conductedly assured the butler. What will change if I talk to some servant? Olivia snorted contemptuously, turning away to the window. My lady also does everything possible, Mikkel answered in a calm tone, which Olivia did not look at him very badly. How much more are you going to try? I need results! She screamed angrily, hitting her fists on the table. Lady, you yourself know which Duke Hirschbent is a scrupulous person. All the same, calmly reminded the butler. Hirschbent? Is the same Duke Karl Hirschbent? Anna was mentally amazed, remembering her old friend's father. No matter how much the fire burned in the eyes of the Duke. But still, why didn't you bring Robin? Meanwhile, she asked Olivia. As you can see, Sir Robin has a lot of merits. Michelle began, raising a mug of tea. Therefore, the Duke does not trust his son-in-law. Without a clear reason, he will not send Sir Robin abroad. He finished the butler with explanations and calmly drank tea. Then you could just falsify the documents. You promised that you would give Robin. All did not let Olivia come. My lady keeps her promise and is now working on this in her homeland, lady, Michelle assured her dispassionately. Well, I no longer intend to wait. I also have a hard time, Olivia said. I thought Lianka understands me. Now she is a worthy bride. But in the past, she was the same as me, isn't it? With tears in her eyes, Olivia asked. However, in response to a compassionate question, Mikkel said nothing, and Olivia did not notice how coldly he awarded her. Words that the vine was a traitor can injure. Without looking, Anna guessed, and chopped a piece of dessert on the fork. But this is true, she mentally stated, while Olivia continued to complain. I miss Robin. We haven't seen each other for so long. In addition, I will leave Kant soon. These words surprised Anna. So she remained for the sake of Robin? Is she just Aster sister? Listen, if you constantly violate your promises, then I will have a solution. Suddenly, Olivia passed from complaints to threats. You haven't forgotten? About the fact that we made a deal? She slyly reminded Mikkel, resolutely clenched her fists. If you do not give me what I want, then I reveal the whole truth. With a triumphant smile, Olivia ultimatum set. All that is hiding the vine, she added for clarity. But to her surprise, Mikkel only sighed tiredly, covering her eyes. Lady, we have already offered different options for Sir Robin many times. He began the butler, leaning on the table. This means that if he decided, then he had a lot of chances to leave. He explained, which is why Olivia was dumbfounded. What? She dropped and then Mikkel continued. If Sir Robin supposedly helped a little, then he would have been here. Robin refused to meet me? In a trembling voice with excitement, she asked Olivia, while smiling nervously, and covering his eyes in a good-natured smile. Mikkel kindly answered her. Right. And after one of his words, silence hung in the cafe. Can't be! She screamed Olivia, violating the calmness of the institution, and jumped up from the chair. My Robin cannot do that. When I was expelled, he, despite the danger, came to spend me. She desperately began to prove the opposite. And he said that he must meet me. With these words, Olivia fell on the table, resting her hands on him. Therefore, Sir Robin at least once contacted you after that? He reasonably clarified Mikkel, to which Olivia looked up at him. This is Kant. Another state. Surely he does not know where I stopped. She tried to find an explanation for everything, despite the fact that I informed him of this? Mikkel objected, but Olivia did not give up. The Duchess of Hirschbent is following him. Robin will definitely want to contact me. There would be only an opportunity. All you need to do is just help. Lady Olivia, wife Sir Robin, Larissa Hirschbent, gave birth to a child. Mikkel reported, and for her, these words were a sentence. And what? He does not love his wife. Olivia hissed, trembling with my whole body from anger. Therefore, he fell in love with me. But Sir Robin suddenly had family duties. With a condescending smile, the butler reminded, as soon as a girl was born to him, he immediately abandoned all the women with whom he had fun and forgot all the roads to the brothel. What? To the brothel? I asked Olivia incorrectly, which sincerely surprised Michelle's unperturbed. You didn't know? Sir Robin visited a secret club for men twice a week. With a polite smile, he informed Olivia news, and of course, he visited them when he met you. He added a butler, scoring the last nail in the coffin cover. Number Olivia whispered and fell on a chair, and Mikkel continued everything. I heard him worried that karma will overtake his daughter. Therefore, the priests are very happy that Sir Robin brings a tribute to repentance for a rampant lifestyle to the threshold of their temple. Because of this, even it is difficult for me to contact him. Michelle finished, but Olivia did not notice this, plunged into herself. And there, in Memoirs, she saw Violet Letitia and remembered how once she said about her, squalor, right? In her place, I would better die than I lived such a life. So she stated. But now she is really in the place of Letitia. Lie! All this is a lie! She screamed desperately, Olivia Winchester, covering her ears with her hands from the ironic truth and all the arguments. He said that he would divorce. He said that, marry me. She continued to rage, overturning the mug and spilling tea. And then she raised a crazy look at Michelle and declared a crazy smile. Bring evidence. Then I will retreat. Is that all you wanted? All the same, as calmly and impassively, the butler of the Snoweiser family has specified in Olivia. If this is a lie or you cannot bring evidence, then beware, she threatened, throwing a hood over her head. And with these words, Olivia Winchester, without saying goodbye, she left. Is it all over? Anna asked in her thoughts, looking after that. It is a pity that it was not possible to find out about the weaknesses of Lianka, but I will still have a chance. And with this thought, she also decided to leave. However, the next moment, her chair suddenly held Mikkel. Enjoy eavesdropping? He was curious. You followed me from the port, right, lady? He continued the interrogation, hanging over the numb Anna Rosa. I do not like it when such a beauty is obsessed with me, because it is so troublesome. Blood froze from these words in her veins. Tell me, who are you? Mikkel asked again, leaning towards her in order to look behind his hat and look at his face. It seems that there was a misunderstanding. I am very ashamed that I followed you. Anna began to make excuses, turning away. As you know, the port is on a straight line. The structure is to follow the person walking in front. You were convinced that I entered the cafe, and then went to the hat store. Michel told his version, which caught Anna by surprise. You bought a big hat and covering your face with it, sat next to it, so that after eavesdropping on my conversation. With a smile, the butler finished. I did not eavesdrop. Anna was indignant, jumping up from the chair and turning around. I was just attracted to the noise, so I looked there. If you do not want to attract the attention of others, do not scream. She said goodbye and turned away, hastened to leave. Anna could no longer see how Mikkel smiled modestly, but she heard him suddenly said, You are very strange. Anna turned around warily, and Mikkel continued, looking at her hand on the move. It is weak, but I feel that you are. With these words, he held out his hand to the face of the amazed Anna. But the next moment, Sul appeared behind the girl's back. Anna Rosa, I'm sorry to make you wait. Prince Zion respectfully apologized, gaining Anna by the waist and pulling him to him. Why are you so late? Anna played along, realizing that it was a performance, and the prince answered. I misunderstood the meeting place. Everything is fine, Anna reassured, putting her hand on his chest and said with a smile. Even the expectation brought me joy. However, from her words, Zionian's face suddenly stretched out in sincere amazement, which was why Anna was slightly confused. But the benefit of the prince came to his senses and continued as before. I missed you so much. If I were in your place, I would also be angry. This is only for a show. Anaros mentally said to herself when Zion suddenly put her in passionate embrace. Please do not be angry with me. He whispered in her mouth and covered them with a hot kiss, right before the eyes of Michel and the entire institution. And only when the butler of the Snowizers family left the building, Zion tore the kiss and pulled away from the pinking Anna. That person can be dangerous, so do not come closer to him. The prince strictly ordered her, suddenly changing in his face. How dangerous? Anna was confused, not yet moving away from the shock. Literally. All Soul answered her still strictly. Strange energy comes from him. He explained vaguely, thinking. That is, as from a dangerous person? Anna clarified. I'm not joking. Zion suddenly held out his hand to her chest. Your wounds. I felt the energy that weaved in this person. Then he took his hand and declared, This is a very unpleasant feeling that I cannot completely erase even with my strength. This means that Mikkel is involved in my death? Anna mentally asked the question, pressing a fist to her chest. If so, then why does he wish me death? Anaros thought, plunged into the memories of a past life. Lianka had the goal of capturing Aster, but Mikkel was just a butler serving the Snowizer family. The worker of the woman who killed you arrived in Kant, so you should not hesitate. Suddenly, Sul hurried her, returning to the present. What are we going to do? Anna asked. To begin with, we will leave here. And with these words, Zion acquired her and led her out. But there was no results of the second exam. Robley reminded Rosa, deciding to break the silence between them. Everything has already been done. The results of your test at the end of the lunar ball were determined, Sol answered, without turning to her. However, such an answer did not reassure Anaros at all, and Zionian noticed how she lowered her saddened gaze. Will you give me time to say goodbye to Marzi and Edgar? Anna asked, yelling sadness and returning a smile to her face. These are people who have done so much for me. She added, recalling the faces of real friends that she became a family for her. Zion thought for a short time, and then threw up 3 fingers and declared, 3 weeks. It should be enough? Yes, thank you very much. With a joyful smile, Anna thanked and took the prince by the arm, pressed herself to his shoulder. And why do you thank? Lukavo was specified by Prince Zionian with the former cunning smile and the same look. Meanwhile, at the Baudrin's estate, the Marquis Baudrin took, for the dinner of the prince, Mr. Langaro. 3 weeks! Too few! We got so close! Marzi was indignant. You knew that she would leave you, the adjutant reminded, as they knew that she would remain in Kant in order to prepare a revenge plan. He added that, and Marquise set aside a glass of champagne. Nevertheless, if not for the obligation, then I would immediately go to find out everything from His Highness, proudly stated by Marzi.